welcome to the Town Council virtual meeting of June 11th, Thursday, 7 o'clock. We appreciate you being here. I wanted to go through a few announcements before we get started. Again, this is a virtual meeting, so you can view it on Merrimack TV channel 20 or on Merrimack TV's Facebook Live page. And if you're watching this, you obviously figured that part out already. www.facebook.com/Merrimack TV. If you wish to dial in during the participation time, the number will be on the bottom of the screen there, along with the meeting ID. And to get my attention, participation time, or at any time that you're asked to join, if it's during one of the other discussions, you need to dial a *9, I believe it is, to raise your hand. That will raise a flag on my computer monitor, and I'll be able to acknowledge you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. I haven't received any public comments in email. They needed to have been sent in already before the start of this meeting. So if you do wish to comment, you need to call in during the public participation time. At this point, I'd like to do a roll call to make sure that everybody is present, can hear, and lets us know where they are per the orders of the government with his emergency orders, Governor. So my name is Councilor Tom Koenig. I'm the chairman. I'm participating electronically from my home in Merrimack at 1 Danforth Road due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I am alone at this point, but my family will be coming back shortly, so they'll be in the house, and I can hear folks in the room here. Lon, can we go to you?
This is Councilor Lon Woods. I'm participating electronically from 2 Arbor Street, Merrimack, New Hampshire, 03054, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I am alone.
And you can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Nancy.
Hi, I am Councilor Nancy Harrington. I am participating electronically from Rhode Island due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I am alone and I can hear you.
Thank you. Finley. Finley, you're muted. I can't hear you.
You'd think I'd learn. Finley Rothaus. I'm participating electronically from my home. Attendance for me in person was not reasonably practical due to the COVID-19. I'm have family in and out this evening, but otherwise I'm generally alone.
And you can hear us.
And I can hear you.
Thank you. Peter?
This is Councilor Peter Albert. I'm participating electronically from 12 Roberta Drive, Merrimack, New Hampshire, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I am not alone. I'm in my house and family members are around, but primarily will be alone. I can hear you.
Thank you. Barbara?
Hi, this is Councilor Barbara Healy, and I am participating electronically from my home office in Merrimack. I am alone in this office except for the rest of my family in other parts of the house. I am participating electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I can hear you all.
Thank you very much. Eileen and Paul, you can hear us as well?
We can hear you, and Bill Boyd should be dialing in shortly.
Okay. When he gets in, we'll go through the litany, I guess. At this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order and go to the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I see Councilor Boyd is joining us. When you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my apologies for my tardiness. This is Councilor Bill Boyd, and tonight I am participating electronically from 139 Joppa Road in Merrimack due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I am alone. I am sitting here at the dining room table. My wife is in the other room. She may periodically come to the kitchen to get a snack. I may be joined by my 3 dogs as well, and I can hear all of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I think that covers our list of requirements for our virtual meeting. everybody knows how to be able to access the meeting. We posted it with the agenda when we posted it, so the information is there in the agenda. If you have any questions, I guess the best thing to do would be to call the number 929-205-6099. It's a meeting ID, and raise your hand. But I think we'll all be good. So moving right along, finding my agenda. So announcements. Something I needed a piece of paper for. Okay. The Rotary Club of Merrimack, in conjunction with Common Man and maskupnh.com, maskupnh.com, will be issuing masks to anyone interested on Friday, June 19, between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m. and Saturday, June 20th, between the hours of 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 526 DW Highway, aka Vault Motor Storage, used to be known as, now I'm drawing a blank. I knew it earlier. Anyway, Xylus. There you go. How could I forget Xylus? Oh, anyway, the masks are free, but donations are greatly appreciated. For more information, please visit maskupnh.com for more details. maskupnh.com. Voting day. Finally going to come. Official ballot vote will be held on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, without fail. Upcoming town council meetings, we anticipate having another meeting on Thursday, June 25th. Regular meeting at 7 p.m. And in light of the governor lifting his stay-at-home order effective the 15th, I'm assuming that'll be at town hall. We'll also have meetings because it's the summer schedule where we usually meet once in July and once in August. We'll plan, unless people want to discuss that, to meet on July 16th and August 20th at 7 p.m. in town hall, unless further adjustments are made with stay-at-home orders and executive orders, et cetera, et cetera. Eileen, did you have other announcements?
Just one. Property tax bills were mailed on June 5th and are due by July 6th. Property owners who have not received their bills should contact the tax collector's office for a duplicate bill. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the announcements? Are we good with the town council meetings on those dates for July, August? Okay. Good.
16th of July.
So that takes care of that. Comments from the press and public. Anybody that would like to make comments on the to the town council at this point, preferably on agenda items. We've gone through and given you the phone number to dial in. You dial into that number 929-205-6099, or it's showing on the bottom of your screen. Then give it the meeting ID, which is also showing on your screen. *9. It's a little complicated, but we'll get you there. We'll give a few minutes for you to be able to dial that if you have a comment you'd like to make to the town council at this point. And this is dead air. We don't want to have dead air, so I'll talk for a little bit. So again, if you have any interest in addressing the comment during addressing the council during public participation, this will be the time to dial in quickly and press *9 so that your hand flies up and we can recognize you. And I'm not seeing any activity in that regard, so we'll move on to recognitions, resignations, and retirements, of which we have none for tonight. And so that brings us to appointments. And we have one for a discussion with the Merrimack Police Chief, Denise Roy, submitted by the Police Chief, Denise Roy, to Chief Roy to address the council regarding the Merrimack Police Department's commitment to community policing, an ongoing review of use of force policies, and discussion of evolving practices for fair and impartial bias training. So I see Chief and Deputy Chief have joined us. Welcome. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the council.
Evening.
Good evening.
How about me?
Oh, we're not done yet.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, now I just can't say my first line. Good evening, Eileen. Thank you, Eileen, for inviting us tonight to address the council and community members who may have questions regarding the Merrimack Police Department's policies and procedures related to use of force. I want to start by telling you how deeply disturbed I am by the events leading to George Floyd's death on Monday, May 31st. The 4 officers involved do not represent all members of law enforcement. In fact, they are the exact opposite of what each and every officer in Merrimack prides himself in, which is integrity. The Merrimack Police Department has always been on the forefront of community engagement. We currently have over 30 programs which unite us with the citizens in our town. Programs such as Coffee with a Cop are designed to bring members of the community and police officers together, with the only agenda being open and honest dialogue. There's no better way to build relationships than coffee and conversation. The Merrimack Police Department believes that building a strong relationship should begin with our youth. 3 days a week during the school year, uniformed patrol officers go to each of the elementary schools where they read books chosen by the students and answer questions they might have. It is our hope that children begin to feel a sense of safety while in the presence of the officers. As the students move into the upper elementary school, they take a class with our community services officer in the PACT program. And as most of you know, PACT stands for Police and Children Together. This is where they get a better understanding for not only the police department's role in society, but what their role in society will be too. Additionally, we have a school resource officer in both the middle school and the high school. The presence of these officers is to provide the students with a sense of security and to begin to mentor positive behavior in relationships for the future. Building these relationships with the youth in Merrimack is an important part of shaping the community partnerships that we currently have. The police department is also committed to hiring the most professional and empathetic officers. Our hiring process is designed to recruit officers who will help us achieve our mission and foster good relationships with the Merrimack residents. We pride ourselves in never settling for an officer just to fill our roster. The police department provides the most up-to-date training for each of our officers. From the moment they are hired to the most veteran officer, they are constantly trained in all areas of law enforcement. We conduct yearly use of force trainings, which includes firearms, simunitions, and defensive tactics. Our yearly curriculum also consists of a verbal review of our deadly and non-deadly use of force policies, along with the force continuum, which is taught from the day an officer is hired. The police department takes pride in the fair treatment of all of its citizens. Each officer has also been trained in our fair and impartial policing policy. The purpose of this policy is to prevent biased policing and other discriminatory practices in any law enforcement related activity involving an officer of the Merrimack Police Department. Our officers are also trained in de-escalation techniques and yearly mental health training in order to better serve those in need during times of crisis. The Merrimack Police Department has developed a culture of togetherness. We believe to be successful, we must partner with the community, but we cannot do it alone. I urge everyone, whether you live, work, or visit Merrimack, to become a partner with us too. Join us in conversations. If you feel as though we could do something better, let us know. If you think we are doing something right, let us know. It cannot be just the police department who makes this town feel welcoming for everyone. It has to be you too. I stand behind each member of the Merrimack Police Department. I could not be more proud to lead the group of women and men that we have. I look forward to keeping our dialogue open with both you, the council, and the community, and hope that you will too. Thank you. Deputy LeVake will actually now touch upon some of the procedures we have and that we follow as it relates to complaints on police officers and use of force reviews.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come here to talk about such an important matter. Just so the community knows that we have several practices in place to deal with complaints on police officers and use of force reviews. We have a complaint on police officer report where community members can come inside the police station to file a formal complaint on a police officer. That complaint is then investigated and dealt with the appropriate manner. I'm proud to say that over the last 5 years, we've only had 8 formal complaints to the police department. That's very impressive in my eyes because we handled nearly 30,000 calls for service each year. And to only have 8 over the last 5 years shows a true testament of the work our employees and officers are doing here. The other thing we have is a use of force review. Anytime there's use of force, whether it be deadly, non-deadly, a vehicle pursuit, or if an animal is destroyed by a handgun because it's sick and needs to be put down. Officers are required to do what's called a use of force review. They complete this thoroughly, and it also deals with any weapon drawn as well, if it's pointed at a subject. They complete this use of force report. The supervisor then reviews it, comments on the report. The use of force review then goes to the patrol captain, and ultimately I review at the end. We feel that this is a good way to keep checks and balances on the police department, and if we notice anything abnormal, we can address it right away. Most of our use of force reviews are thankfully for putting down animals that are sick or have rabies. So that's all I have, Chief.
So we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody may have now, or we can just click off and we'll be fine.
Does anybody on the council? Peter, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I want to just say, I want to verify, not that they need it, but the chief and deputy chief are 100% right. And it's been my experience that it's a thorough, these matters are handled thoroughly and seriously. And Chief, thank you for coming out in this timely manner and just touching on this subject, because I think a lot of people don't have an idea of what happens at a police department. So thank you, and keep up the good work with your staff.
Thank you.
Finley, did you want to say something? You're muted. I'm sorry. I thought I saw your name.
No, I apologize. I didn't have anything to say.
Okay. Nancy?
The only thing I want to say is, having been on the council for several years and knowing what the police and in the town for 40 some odd years, I'm well aware of the police department. I have to say I'm really proud of them. But I'm also particularly proud because they've been doing community policing for years. That's becoming a term you're hearing now, but it's really been a very focused goal of our police department for many years. So that makes me very proud too, and congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Barbara?
How many resource offices do we have at the school now? And what are they doing, and how are they doing usually when school is in session?
So we have 3 officers that go into the schools. One of them is a community service officer, so we don't count him technically as a school resource officer. What we do have is one in the middle school and one in the high school. During this whole time that the students have been at home, they haven't stopped doing their job as far as keeping in touch with students and going back and forth to the schools, making sure that during the lunch programs that they have everything they need. So the other thing that they're involved in right now, the graduation, which tomorrow they're having their graduation parade. They've been heavily involved with every aspect of the school, and just because they aren't there doesn't mean that they weren't actually interacting with the children or the kids. Sorry. So in the summertime, we have various projects that they do, including going to the nursery schools, the daycares, and getting in touch, because we truly believe that the contact, when they start from a young age and they see us and they're familiar with us, it helps us and it helps them grow into the community. So for years now, in the summertime, they've been going into the daycares and the other facilities just to be in contact with them.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a comment.
Well, I'm going to go to Bill, and then I'll come back to you, Lon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chief Roy and Deputy Levesque. Thank you, and thanks to everybody at the Merrimack Police Department who patrols our streets on a daily basis to keep our property safe and to keep our people safe. My wife and I, we've lived in town for 15 years. My wife was born and raised here, and we have nothing but positive things to say about the level of policing in our community. I'm especially gratified to hear you talk about our resource officers off of what Councilor Healy said. My daughter, who will be graduating on Saturday, really benefited from having a good rapport with Officer Prentice at the middle school, and then before he retired, Officer Murray at the high school. So everybody should be commended for what you folks do on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, I was just reading the other day, there's a website called alarms.org, and they've ranked Merrimack third in the state as with the lowest percentage of crime in New Hampshire. And I just think that's a testament to the community policing component. It's a credit to the training and the level of alertness that our officers have on a daily basis. And you know, we're a leader in that. The way I look at it, I feel when it comes to policing and interactions for our community and making sure that we're keeping our community safe, we do a darn good job. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. The one question that I guess I would ask either you, Chief, or Deputy Levesque is, you know, I've been on the council now for 9 years. I guess how infrequent are the complaints that come in regarding how something was handled at the police department?
I believe the fact that we only 8 over the last 5 years for
30,000 calls.
with 30,000 calls each year is pretty impressive. A lot of times people might come into the station to look to file a complaint, and it's simple. They just didn't know why we did something, and they're fine with the explanation that's given by the supervisor. So it is very, very frequent. Like I said, 8 in the last 5 years is pretty remarkable for a town this size and the volume calls that we handle, not including all the traffic interactions we have, which is not accounting towards calls of service. So I would say very, very infrequent.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Lon Woods?
Yeah, I just want to express my thanks and my respect for the Merrimack Police Department.
Thank you.
I would add my thoughts in that regard as well. I mean, when I first moved to town back in '91, I was impressed with what I saw with the police department, but when I saw them with their Citizens Police Academy and talked to quite a number of people that have attended that program, I've been very amazed at how open and outpouring they are, reaching out to the community to find out what it is that they do on a daily or an evening basis. Taking people on rides with them, showing them around the town, understanding what it is that the police do, interacting with people. I think, Nancy, I think you said community policing. I think that's definitely a good description for what they're doing. They're in our community, they're working in our community, they're helping us to be safe and be comfortable in our communities. And I appreciate the work that you folks are doing as well. So thank you very much. Bill.
Thank you.
And just one last thing I forgot to add, their open house, their yearly open house absolutely goes a long way in opening up the facility and exposing people of the community to what they work on a daily basis. And that's another great attribute as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
And getting tased, Bill? Right?
Hey, 5 seconds. 5 seconds.
Obviously impressive. So anyway, I just wanted to say, if you don't mind, Tom, that since I've been here for 9 years, and I have been thoroughly impressed by the Merrimack Police Department all that time. Their professionalism, the things that the chief just talked about having to do with the hiring practices, all kinds of, work is done prior to somebody being hiring, from being evaluated by a counselor for, for their, the manner in which they treat people, and extensive lie detector tests and reports and that kind of thing. We have rejected some applicants for things that we don't find to be what we're looking for here in Merrimack, which is, as you say, a very community-oriented police department. So I thank you, and I thank all of your officers and your staff for the really good job that you do in keeping us all safe and informed about what's going on. So thank you, and thank you to your staff as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate it. And You can leave, you can hang around for a minute. I got word that one of the people on the call probably was trying to call in for our public comment section. I believe it's Samantha Searles. If you are on the line and you're wanting to talk to the council, can you do a *9 and raise your hand? Okay, I'm going to unmute you. So 531, you should be good to talk at this point.
Hi, yes, my name is Samantha Searles. Councilor Healy had made me aware of this call, and I just wanted to make myself known to the council. I am the Merrimack resident who's organizing the event in Abbey Griffin Park tomorrow night, the Peaceful Vigil for Black Lives, and I wanted to it's actually ironic, considering that I met with Chief Roy and Deputy Chief Lake today. But I just wanted to reiterate that it is going to be a peaceful event as far as I can be in control of it, and that I'm really grateful for the police for all of the work that they've done to help me make it safe. So.
Okay.
That is
Thank you very much for calling in. I would just remind you, and I'm sure many have, that we're still under the COVID-19 emergency orders. And so social distancing masks are extremely, heavily urged. I don't know how any control you have over that, but anything you can do to try and keep people as safe as possible from COVID-19 would be awesome.
Yes, that's the plan. We actually have people who will be handing out masks. We're going to have tables socially distanced, and as much as possible, that's the plan. I have asthma, so I myself am at high risk. So I'm trying to keep people safe as much as possible. I don't even want anyone to get a paper cut at one of these things. So.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Denise, did you want to say something?
I did. I just wanted to say, like Samantha said, we met with her today, and she, for a young adult, she's a breath of fresh air because she is cooperative in the fact that she understands that we have a job to do, but that we want her to be able to have a successful event. And we just wanted to say that we appreciate her level of maturity and her understanding of our views on everything. So we just wanted to say thank you for cooperating and working in conjunction with us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it, Samantha?
Yes, that was all for me.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to mute you at this point. There is another caller on the line. I don't know if they called in to be part of public participation. If so, they ought to hit *9. And they're either not listening or not interested in not doing it. So we're going to move forward and have finished with public participation at this point. We don't have any public hearings scheduled for tonight. Legislative updates from state representatives. If we have a state rep that's called in and looking to be able to address the council, they ought to hit *9 on their phone at this point. Or dial in. My understanding is that Samantha was a little bit late because there's quite a lag time between when they can view this and how long it takes them to call in, stuff like that. So I apologize for that order issue that we ran into there. So if there's a state legislature wanting to talk to us tonight, they should have dialed in hopefully by now and are already ready to hit *9 on their phone. I don't know what the lag is in between our presentation here and what shows up on Facebook. But I'm sure it's a few seconds, if not half a minute or more. I'm seeing no changes. Again, if I'm missing, if I'm going too fast, send a note to somebody or raise your hand and we'll try to figure out what's going on. That brings us to the town manager's report.
Okay, the Bedford Road Bridge project is nearing completion with a scheduled opening on Tuesday, June 16th. There will continue to be daily lane closures through the summer months as the utilities companies move their poles and lines back to the new roadway. Traffic will be controlled daily through the work area by flaggers working for the utilities companies. Transfer station decals. Beginning June 16th, residents will be able to obtain the 2020 transfer station resident decals at the transfer station and the Public Works administration office here at Town Hall at the lower level. An outside table near the transfer station will facilitate the distribution of the 2020 decals. Residents are encouraged to fill out a decal request form prior to arrival to save time, but copies will also be available at the two sites. Residents will need to show proof of residency to obtain the decal, which is free for the town residents. The decal request form can be found on the Merrimack Public Works Solid Waste webpage on the town website. This weekend, the media division will record the Merrimack High School, right, Bill? Graduation. The production will include pre-recorded speeches from staff, students, and a musical performance. The class of 2020 graduation will be made available sometime next week on Merrimack TV channel 21 and on your YouTube page. This will be the 16th consecutive year that the media division has covered the ceremony. The production is an all-day 7 to 9 hour event that the media edits into a two-hour presentation. The library building is still closed to the public, and the public and staff continues to combine telework and on-site work with an increase in on-site work. The book drops located in the library parking lot and at Natticook Road Fire Station are open to accept returned material. Fines continue to be waived. The library is planning to begin contactless curbside pickup of requested materials on Monday, June 15th, which represents the initial stage of the gradual resumption of the library services to increase access to the community. Details can be found on the library website and Facebook page. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the town manager for her report? Seeing none. We have no consent agenda tonight, which brings us to old business. And I put first here the upcoming election/voting discussion, because this is our last meeting before the election to have a chance to discuss, talk about, plan, schedule, or whatever we need to do with respect to the vote. Up until recently, the governor still had his 10 people per group rule in place, and that will be lifted, on my understanding, on Monday, the 15th, which means our election will have no problems as far as that's concerned. Prior to this, the AG's office was saying that we couldn't have more than 10 people, period, at the election, which was to include workers. So we'd have about 2 to 4 people at a time could go into the polling place. That wouldn't have worked, but and we felt like we had a way around that. But at this point, if the governor lifts his order of 10 people, then we have no problem at all, and we'll be able to hold our election just fine. We are still planning to require masks, hand washing. We have plexiglass shields for the ballot checkers and gloves for whoever needs them and things of that nature. So we still will be taking every precaution we can because, as you know, COVID-19 is still out there. People are still catching it. Hopefully not as fast and as many as in the past, and hopefully it won't spike back up again with the reopening of everything. But we certainly don't want our voting to be the cause of a big spike in Merrimack. We've had well over 1,500 people apply for absentee ballots, which is great because hopefully that means that many fewer people will be feeling like they need to come out to vote. That also allows lots of people the opportunity to feel safer as far as coming out into a crowd. But where we still need to go as a council, we've had a lot of people have decided that they don't want to work the polls this year because of their age and their susceptibility to something like COVID-19. And if they were to see 100 or 500 people come through, there's concern they might have a problem. The council is responsible for the vote. We're expected to be there. We have to be at each of the precincts in order to, an appointee has to be at each of the precincts to be a quote unquote council official. And I'm anticipating that we're going to be there. If somebody has a problem with that or doesn't feel like they want to go, they can certainly step out. What I would ask is that if at all possible, you'd find somebody, either a younger person, family member, or somebody that you trust to sign in as a counselor pro tem and be able to take some of the hours. Eileen?
I just wanted to let you know that we have 3 of our town hall employees are going to the polling places to help out, 1 at each place. And so if any of you, they're all 3 of them are registered voters in Merrimack. So if you need one of them to be your designated person, just let us know.
Okay. Well, that might as well go back to the question of staffing at the polling places. Do we feel like we have sufficient numbers of people available to do the checking and the registering and all that kind of thing? Or I know Lynn expressed some concern.
Yes, we do. I spoke to her, I think it was yesterday, and we talked about having availability. Obviously, the public works employees go and help with setup and all that kind of thing, and taking things down. This year it'll be a little bit more labor intensive because, as you said, there are provisions being made for separations of the voting booths and different PPE and hand sanitizer, plexiglass, and all that kind of thing, so that everybody feels good and safe. So anyway, so they'll be there to take care of that. And I asked Lynn how many other people that she needed, and she told me 1 at each location. If you want to have one of them be your representative, if you could let me know now, we could have another employee there to help Lynn with her other things that need to be done. But other than that, that's all she needs is 3.
So that brings up a really fast question. Are there any of you that feel like you shouldn't or can't be at the polling places on the 23rd?
Is that appropriate to talk about at a meeting?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to talk at a meeting because it relates to maybe somebody's health concerns. So
we're all in this virtual meeting because of our health concerns with respect to COVID. So I guess I didn't see that particular problem. And we can talk about it separately. I just, right now, we usually make assignments for who's going to be at what location. So we can, and if somebody should decide they're not going to be there for whatever reason that might develop, one of us might get sick, then we just need to converse with you and make sure that we can find coverage for that person, right?
So if anybody has any issues, if you don't mind, you just contact Tom or me and let us know. And those of you that are able to come, I need to hear from Tom, or I needs to hear from every one of you to let us know your availability. Okay? Or not.
At this point, I'm still planning to be at St. John Newman. Does anybody else have any special preferences for where they would be?
St. John Newman.
Lon shouldn't be going.
I don't.
Okay. Anybody else?
I usually work Master Kohler Upper Elementary.
What?
Jay Muse? Can you work the whole day, Peter, or are you going to be tied up part of the day?
I can work. I take that day off. I'll be there the whole day.
Okay. Anybody, Barbara?
Yeah, I'm going to be at middle, and because I've been trying to, because of my asthma, stay somewhat sequestered, although you wouldn't believe it. But Bob Healy has offered to help be a official to kind of be in my stead when I have to step back a little bit during busy times.
Okay. just, make sure he's aware of what kind of duties he's expected to do. And,
Yes, sir.
give me a call.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Anybody else have a preference?
Well, I've been actually going, I used to be at St. John Newman, but it seems like I'm outvoted. You guys have jumped in too
Right.
fast.
If you
But
jump in,
anyway,
you could go there and I'll move
I've been
around.
doing the I've been doing the middle school, I'm sorry, yeah, the middle school, as well as JMU, so either one of those or even both, we can take turns. Barbara and Barbara, I can keep Bob, busy.
I'm keeping the list.
Okay. Bill or Peter, are you planning to be at the election? You can be, even though you're on the ballot, because you're town councilors. And so you're expected to fulfill your duty as a counselor. Go ahead. Did you have something to say, Finley?
They'll let you know.
I guess you didn't see it. Yeah, I normally go to JMU's, and that's where I was intending on. And most of the day, midday, I will likely be heading out, but otherwise I'll be there almost the whole day into the end.
And Bill?
I'm generally at JMU's as well, but I can go to the middle school if you want me to.
Well, maybe you and Nancy can swap back and forth or something like that to make sure that one's covering all the time, so that we have hopefully 2 people at each location.
Okay.
Bill, you and I can talk?
Yes, please.
It is allowed even.
Yes.
All right. So, that gives us coverage for all of the, at least 2 people at each of the locations if people can stay the whole day. We'll either try and find someone to cover or something like that, but we'll plan on that. That'll put us in good stead with the AG's office, and with having enough people there in case, as Lynn pointed out, there may be a time when she needs to have one to sit down and start checking in people at one of the books or something like that, because she is fairly short-staffed. She's planning to have a light turnout due to the absentee ballot, all the discussions that we've been going through. And so I think I saw a note that she only expected to have 1 book at St. John Newman that would split into 2 if it gets really crowded or something like that, either first thing in the morning or sometime lunchtime or whatever. Usually it doesn't get terribly crowded in the evening there. So I don't expect us to have any trouble at all, but does anybody have any questions about how the election is going to go, what we need to do, or anything? Saying none. Lynn hasn't. Peter, go ahead.
I'm just curious about the layout at JMU's. I mean, are we still going to be, is it going to still be the same layout, entryway, exitway?
I believe so. She's definitely planning to have a one-way pattern at all times. And so I'm not sure what she's going to do at the middle school. Whether she's going to have them come in through the front doors and work their way over to the cafeteria and come out the back door, or vice versa, or maybe something I haven't even thought about. I know at St. John Newman, there's no problem with an in and an out. And certainly at JMU's, there's no problem with an in and an out, because both of them dump out towards the parking lot fairly well. So I know she's got plans to be able to separate the tables as much as possible, to separate the voting booths. Probably when she puts up the older booths at St. John Newman, she'll take off half or more of the covers so that people won't be using those, and that'll keep them separated out further. Aside from that, I don't see any real problem as far as spacing is concerned, especially if we keep everybody 6 feet apart at the check-in. I think that's where the biggest crowd's likely to ever show up. So, any other comments on the election? Seeing none, we can move to the next order of business, which is Tears Foundation, number 2 under old business. Hill of Hope Monument follow-up discussion submitted by the Tears Foundation co-chapter leaders, Kim and Darcy. The town council to have a follow-up discussion about the location for bringing an, quote, Angel of Hope unquote monument to Merrimack. This monument is a symbol of hope and serves as a place for families to gather to remember and honor their baby who has passed away. So I see Kim and Jillian, and is Kim going to join us? Kim's with us now too. So welcome, and we're hoping you have some good news for us. We're tasked with working with staff and trying to find a suitable location, and we're looking forward to an update from you.
Great. I'll speak to that. Jillian, Kim, and I were able to go around to the different locations before before the world turned upside down with COVID-19, and we sent in a formal request to Paul and would love to request to have the monument installed at Abbey Griffin if it's possible. We think it's the perfect location. It's highly visible on the main path, but kind of tucked up and away. The benches that are part of the monument seem like they would go in really nicely with the granite benches that already exist. We also gave a lot of consideration to the fact that there's not a playground present there, and we believe that those that are earlier in their loss could be easily triggered by children playing on a playground, but we also like that it's a family gathering place, and I think that that will give people a lot of hope. So we thought it was sort of the perfect hybrid location, fulfilling a lot of the needs that we were hoping for the perfect spot.
Okay. Does anybody else want to add to that from Tears?
No, Darcy, I think you did a great job. Summed it up nicely. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Can you give us a better description? I'm presuming you probably don't have a map you could show us of where you're thinking to put it, or
yeah,
is it a trail that goes down from the parking lot to the gazebo? Is it right or left as you're going down that trail, or towards the street, or not?
So we sort of envisioned it, and Jillian or Kim, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory serves that as you're going down the path and the buildings are behind you, it would be sort of along the wood line on the right-hand side. We were thinking that that would be kind of nice tucked away, and would kind of not be too close to the gazebo where it's too present, but also has a nice little spot right over there along the wood line. And I think maybe Nancy had also recommended that. Somebody suggested that spot last time, and when we went down and looked, we thought, oh, that would be perfect.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, if you go down that fence and then take a right, before the tree line, there's actually a quasi driveway or something to get in there to be able to bring equipment into the gazebo and stuff. Are you talking all the way to that tree line on the other side of where there might be a sort of road, or am I in the wrong location?
I feel like, Jillian, you have a better sense. Do you know? I can't envision the driveway part.
Paul can do a good job of explaining that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, wonderful.
Go for it, Paul.
Yeah, we're thinking in that back corner there, against the fence line, in that back corner, pushed back from that driveway, so that if families do want to have a picnic or something, they can pull back and actually sit on the grass and have a picnic and kind of be not in the limelight or not in the forefront of the road, but having a peaceful event there, and they could have a picnic and things of that sort. So to keep it kind of tucked in that back corner, so to speak, so that if we do need to expand, we can expand down the wooded line closer towards DW Highway. So it's tucked in near the courthouse, near the fence, near the courthouse, in the back corner, and near the tree line going down towards DW Highway.
Okay, perfect. That gives me a better idea. Thank you very much. Peter, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Paul, I'm curious, how much, or Eileen, how much of that, when you reach the wood line between the gazebo and Connell's Plaza, how much down that hill property does the town own?
We own almost down to Cornell's lot, from what I've been told.
Okay, yeah, because I've always thought that, one, I think that's a nice area for the proposed memorial, but also I've always thought that grooming or cleaning up that hillside as we move forward in the future, and this would be having a nice memorial that would be part of that, was always a good way to open up and beautify the rest of that Abbey Griffin area.
else have comments? Seeing none. So where do we go from here? Paul, do you have or Eileen, do you have a recommendation for us?
It's up to the council, but we would, if the council would approve that location for the monument, the ladies can get moving forward with the monument company to get one ordered and let us know when it could be delivered and in place, and we'll stake it out and things of that sort for them and the monument
What kind of
companies.
motion?
They basically need to approve, the motion needs to approve the Tiers, the Tiers Memorial, the Tiers Foundation Memorial, and the location at Abbey Griffin Park.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Nancy and seconded by Bill to approve the location in Abbey Griffin Park for a Tears Foundation Memorial, Angel of Hope Memorial. Any other comments on that? Bill?
Just a very quick comment, Mr. Chairman. I have a neighbor of mine who, she and her husband, just like, you know, the women here from the Tears Foundation, lost a child at birth. And I mentioned this potential opportunity to them, and they were really excited about the opportunity of having a location in town where they could go as a family with their daughters and be able to have a quiet moment of reflection regarding their son. So, great idea. I'm really excited about it. We put a lot of hard work as a community to making Abbey Griffin one of our crown jewels, and with Abbey Griffin being one of our town mothers, I think there's a little bit of appropriateness of having a statue symbolizing and memorializing the loss of lives that never happened. So it's a great opportunity for our community, and I look forward to supporting the project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments before we take a vote on this? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All votes have to be by roll call. Lon Woods?
Woods, yay.
And myself, yes. Nancy?
Yes.
Finley?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Bill?
Boyd, aye.
And Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0 on a unanimous vote. Thank you, gals. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. Can't tell you how much it means and how excited we are to have it in the community, and also just how your warmth and your generosity of spirit has meant so much to us. So thank you so much.
It's
It's a
our honor
reflection
to
of
host
yours.
it.
Privilege. Thank you.
Definitely a reflection of yours.
you.
Thank you very much.
Darcy and Kim, if you can just get in touch with me with the monument sizes, we can start staking it out and we can get moving forward with it.
Great. Thank you.
Will do. Thanks, Paul.
You're
Thanks,
welcome. Have a good
everybody.
night.
Take care, ladies.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Okay, are we set? All right, that brings us to the next item on our agenda. Number 3 under old business is a discussion of the town emergency order submitted by Town Manager Eileen Cabanel. Council to discuss the town emergency order that is currently in place, specifically for the following items: the farmers market, 4th of July fireworks, Lake Natticook Beach, parks, town hall complex, Natticook Day Camp, and by extension, just whether or not we're going to continue with this emergency order, given that the governor plans to drop the stay-at-home order on the 15th of June. Eileen, do you want to start out on this?
Yeah, just to clarify, the governor did drop the stay-at-home. He announced that it was going to sunset and there was going to be no replacement for the 10-person maximum and for the stay-at-home order, just today. I mean, a few hours ago. So,
Right. I was only hedging because the 15th hasn't actually hit yet. And
it hasn't hit, but he has indicated that there's going to be no replacement for it. He's actually said that out loud at a meeting. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that we, through your emergency ordinance, you have done a couple of things, mostly related to town buildings. But there are other things, mostly recreational and quality of life type of events and amenities that the town offers that we would like you to discuss. Now, we're a little bit at a loss here because when Matt Kasparius, hi Matt, did a lot of this work, he was frantically texting me a couple of hours ago saying, oh, you know, some of this stuff is not valid anymore, or I have a different opinion now because the governor has given different, you know, different things. So we're just like everybody else in the world, we're kind of doing these things with a lot of thought, but on the fly. So anyway, so if I may, Tom, can we just start with the emergency order itself and just, I would recommend that you rescind it. And I wanted, for those of you that I didn't have a chance to call just a little while ago about this, the emergency ordinance was not in your packets. So if you will indulge me, the action items in this ordinance were A, to the town of Merrimack ordains that effectively, immediately upon adoption of this ordinance, the designated town facilities and operations will be closed to the public in order to prevent/reduce the spread of COVID-19 and to comply with the CDC guidelines that gatherings be limited to 10 people or less. So that's the first one. The second one says feasible and practical accommodations will be made to allow the public online access to town resources and to transact business as may be determined by the town council and the town manager. So those are the two action items. And without getting into trying to parse out how we're planning on opening town hall with safety precautions, I would think it would be simpler to just rescind this ordinance, since we will be opening our town hall facilities on Monday, June 15th.
So we're looking for a motion to rescind our emergency ordinance EO1 effective 15th of June.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Yes. Don't listen to the.
Thanks, Eileen.
Sorry.
Appreciate it. Thank you. If I vote as you, am I in any conflict by voting? As it relates to,
No, you are not, Bill. Nope, you are not.
As it relates to letter F on discussion 2.
Absolutely.
Am I in any conflict? Okay, thank you.
So the idea is to rescind the order. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that? Peter?
In light of what the governor's recently said, I don't have a problem with that. My question is, are we still discussing then, if we've rescinded this order, all the other items regarding town hall, concerts, camp, and all that other stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we are. This just rescinds the order that we close the town facilities, and then I think we're going to discuss further how we're going to open up gradually the facilities as they may be, or if there might be specific facilities that we don't open up for whatever reason until things get a little further down the line, phase 2, 3, 4, or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
So we still need a motion. Eileen?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to rescind the order.
Second.
Motion made by Bill and seconded by Nancy. Nancy, did you have something you wanted to say first, or?
No, I was just gonna make the motion, but that's fine.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
Sorry, Nancy.
That's okay, Bill.
Now we're feeling like the Brady Bunch. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Lon?
Would yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy?
Yes.
And Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert,
Yes.
Barbara Healy,
Yes.
and Bill Boyd.
Boyd, aye.
Okay, so that passes 7-0. And the emergency order one. First one we've ever done, the first one to go down. Thank you. Eileen, do you want to carry on?
Yes, so, the first one that we haven't discussed yet, relates to the farmer's market. We asked the chairman of the agricultural committee, who is in charge of the farmer's market, if he would put together a plan for us, keeping in mind, social distancing and masks and that kind of thing. And so he put something together, and you have it in front of you, in your packets. So it calls for, and again, I just like to say that all of these things that were written prior to the governor's order today. So, some of these things you may consider to be overkill. We have, I'll just go over them if that's okay with you.
Yep.
So he says, masks will be required at the farmer's market by everyone. And I think that, and I hope I'm right in saying this, but it's my understanding that people seem to be confused about when and how to wear a mask, or not when but when it's appropriate to wear a mask and when it's not necessary. And I think the easy way to just say this is that if you're going to be in an area where you're going to be within 6 feet of someone else, you should wear a mask. If not, you can if you want, but it's not necessarily practical. I've seen people walking long distances by themselves, wearing a mask, or driving in their car wearing a mask. People need to remember what a mask is trying to do, which is to prevent the spread of COVID-19 from you to other people. So, anyway, I just wanted to state that to keep that in perspective. So, masks, hand sanitizer will be available for patrons. Fortunately, we have been able, through ingenuity from Paul and Fire Chief Duke, been able to acquire quite a few hundred of surgical masks that we're going to be making, that we can make available for people, as well as gallons of hand sanitizer that we're trying to put into smaller containers. So we have a lot of that already. It says only vendors will be allowed to touch the goods in the booths. The layout of the market, pop-up tents will be expanded. Is it still at the vault? Former Xylus. The market will have one entrance and one exit. It will limit the number of people in the market to a maximum of 10 people with social distancing required. So it doesn't need to be 10 anymore, but social distancing required. The market will feature signage to educate the community members about safe engagement in the. Is that your cat, Tom?
That is my cat.
That's
Thanks.
hysterical. The market will feature signage to educate community members about the safe engagement at the market. What is CSA?
Curbside.
Curbside pickup is, who's laughing? Bill Boyd. Curbside pickup is available. One person per household will be allowed to shop rather than bringing the whole family, while maintaining the 6-foot rule between customers and vendors. Absolutely no sampling or touching of the products will be allowed. Social distancing will take place at the market, and shoppers must respect posted policies and vendor booths. So that's what their plan is for the farmer's market. So I think that, you know, that this is a reasonable thing to let them have their farmer's market, because that was a question that people around the state were having. Are we going to have these farmers markets anymore? And I think a lot of thought has gone into this. So from the perspective of the event itself and the safety measures that are being put into place, we have a request of some materials to the tune of $2,500 to open the farmer's market safely. And I'm not really sure where we get the $2,500. It's hand sanitizer, which we already have, safety masks.
If we're lucky, it's 500 right now.
And hand sanitizer, which we already have.
Right.
Okay. Hand sanitizer refill bottles. We have safety masks. Do we have safety gloves?
Yeah.
We have entrance and exit signs.
Gonna pick them up tomorrow?
We got them, caution tape, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not going to cost anything.
It's, no, at most $500, which we bought some of the rope and cones.
Yeah. And we'll be reimbursed for those things. So most of these, it's not $2,500.
Right.
So anyway, most of the things we had, and some of the things are
Yep. Peter?
can be reimbursed.
Okay, now, do we need a motion on this, or is this just a poll with the council?
It's, I don't think you necessarily need a motion unless there's some controversy about it. We just wanted to, you know, some of these other ones, I prefer to have motions, but this is kind of a, you know, are you comfortable with the plan that they have in order for us to continue having farmer's market this summer?
Okay, well, to me, this is a no-brainer from what I've seen. It's open air, so I'm in favor of it.
Okay, Barbara?
Yeah, you know, in addition to, we will limit the number of people in the market to a minimum of 10, because that's gone. I would also get rid of the one person per household will be allowed to shop at one time, because that's obsolete as well.
Okay.
I agree. We've passed that news on to them that just be aware and responsible.
Does anyone else have concerns or thoughts about that?
Nancy?
I don't have any concerns. I just have a quick clarification question. Is this a town-sponsored market?
It's a farmers committee or whatever, the agricultural committee.
Agricultural committee.
Okay, so it is in a way.
Yeah.
In a way,
It
yes.
is. It's put on by them and they arrange it. They charge fees and they pay for their expenses.
Okay, I just wanted to know
Yeah.
officially if they are. That was my only question.
Finances go through Paul's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I have, especially with Barbara's suggestions, I agree.
Okay. Any other
So
comments?
One down.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Eileen, I apologize. I was laughing at Tom's cat. I was laughing at the tail going back and forth. It was
The one tail.
it was comical. Yeah, it was comical. So I have no objections as well. Ironically, I bumped into Bob at the transfer station on Saturday, and he alluded to it in his memo here that everybody at the farmers market went online. The UNH extension program had a 9-minute, I guess he told me it's like 90 minutes of COVID-19 and best practices for a farmer's market to respond appropriately as it relates to COVID-19. So I give Bob a lot of credit to him and everybody else that partook in that particular module. I think it's great that they were being proactive about it, and as a consequence, I feel very comfortable with the market opening up. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is concerns the 4th of July. As you know, with the 4th of July fireworks, as you know, we needed to make a decision about the parade early on because there's a lot of preparation and costs associated with that, believe it or not. And so at the prior meeting, we talked about not having the parade. So in lieu of that, because we won't have the expenses of the parade, Paul came up with the idea that we beef up our fireworks. So I was all excited about that because people love fireworks. You know, it's a nice community event. So we were wondering what you thought about that. I just, as a caveat, I would just like to mention that Nashua is not having theirs. So you just need to know that there may be others coming.
Governor today, that's what he said. I have the budget for you.
What do you
Yeah,
say,
we
Michael?
talked about this last time as well, right? And I think it's still a great idea to have the fireworks. And given the lifting of the order from the governor, we are even in less trouble with respect to crowds. As far as that's concerned, I think though we still encourage people to be careful, as we have all along, and we will probably all through the summer, to wear masks, to social distance as much as possible, to just be careful and avoid getting themselves sick, because we don't want a big surge of people getting sick in Merrimack. Peter, you want to say something?
Do you
Yeah,
mind if I just say one thing, Pete? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So Paul just handed this to me. Apparently the governor had something to say about this today. And a reporter asked him about the 4th of July. And his comment was that most celebrations had been canceled and it would be a smart move to postpone them until fall. And that many communities were looking at Labor Day as an option. But if you know, if you
Okay.
want to have the fireworks, I know the people in town love them.
Right. Peter?
Yeah, Eileen, you said Nashua, but in this letter, it says Manchester, Nashua, and Amherst.
Mhm.
Is that correct? That canceled?
Yes, but I was, I think Matt was telling me that Manchester usually has them the night before.
Yeah, but
Right.
yeah, my concern is, and what the governor has said is most communities. At first, when we discussed the parade, I was sad that we canceled it, but I thought it was a good decision. And I thought, well, the fireworks, open air and everything else. But really, what I'm concerned about now is that we may virtually be the only community shooting off fireworks, and I'm kind of concerned as what we're going to get for a crowd because, I know the people from Manchester, people go between communities for the fireworks, and if we're the only one, I've got some serious concerns about that.
Barbara?
You're not muted.
I know. That was
You're
my
good.
concern as well, is if we're the only game in town, we stand a good chance of being inundated. So why not do like, Labor Day weekend and maybe call it a, Old Town weekend or something. Maybe we can cook something up. But I really worry about being the only game around that's doing fireworks.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Councilor Albert and Councilor Healy. If everybody floods into the center of our town, and and a fire truck's got to go north through all that traffic, I don't know how the heck they're gonna get north. The traffic piece alone is what scares me, and I think Eileen has the right. Whoever said it, we're going to be the only game in town. That's just going to drive. I mean, not that I don't want to drive people to our community, but it's one thing to handle, a couple of thousand people when everybody else is having fireworks at the same time. It's another one when, in the southern part of New Hampshire, most of the population of New Hampshire lives in Hillsborough, Hillsborough County and Western Rockingham County. I want the fireworks as much as everybody else, but I just think I think we're taxing our fire, we're taxing our police if we offer to have fireworks on July 4th. I think that's too much to ask of them, and I think we're putting the large part of the community at risk if something, God forbid, happens that safety personnel couldn't get to another part of town because of the people there watching the fireworks. So, thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Lon?
Yeah, I understand people's concern. I also understand the disappointment of no parade. The very beginning of this discussion, we heard enhanced fireworks, and now we're to no fireworks. So be it. I think Barbara's idea is spot on, perhaps a bit early with Labor Day, but I do know that there were earlier suggestions of looking at some kind of a perhaps Merrimack Old Home Days or a hybrid, I forget what we used to call it, Fall Festival recently or most recently. Perhaps if I hear from a couple of other people that those kinds of ideas could be worked on, I would be more comfortable with the decision about no fireworks at all. If we were willing to spend a little more money on a greater display of fireworks, perhaps we can make those kinds of resources available to a group that might be willing to put together something later on. If we did it late enough, we could incorporate things like the Christmas parade and so on. I don't have a total picture. I'm not that kind of detailed person, but I think that might be or should be something that we consider. Thank you.
Okay.
Paul?
Paul?
I know that the Rotary is looking to put something on this fall with a celebration this fall. They're also looking at moving Rib Fest for the fall. That used to be at Father's Day. They're moving that into the fall. So there are some events that we can work with the Rotary and to have the fireworks on the back end of it as well. They're really looking at some kind of old home day kind of deal. They were really scared about being with COVID and everybody being locked down to actually have the family fun day. So they pushed that to the fall as well. I had some conversations with Bob Best today, and the Rotary's looking at a lot of things for the fall to see if they could do something for the fall. So, we can partner with them like we have with the 4th of July and have the fireworks, or we can just have a day where the council says, this is Merrimack Day, and we can have the fireworks on a Saturday night one night in the fall if that's what the council wants to do. Matt can speak more with the fireworks company Atlas, as long as we give them enough notice and we can reschedule it, and they'll be more than happy to reschedule us for later on in the summer or early fall as well.
Thank you. Peter?
Just real quick, I've been talking about an old home day for years, and I think all the great effort that the Rotary puts in doesn't get as much use on the Midway, whereas an old home day, much like Hudson does, they do it like they start on a Friday night and end on a Sunday. Something like that, I think, incorporate fireworks and so forth. Great. I think that Merrimack's got a lot of great history to celebrate.
Nancy, go ahead.
Sadly, I have to agree. Let's face it, even if we do it in the fall, we are going to be drawing people into the town, but the circumstances hopefully will be different at that point. So it's nice to know that the Rotary is thinking that, because that's a legitimate and logical thing to work together on. We were working 4th of July and all the activities, and that's where the fireworks were. So I think it makes perfect sense that we still partner with them into a fall, whatever you want to call it, kind of event. So begrudgingly, in terms of risk-benefit considerations, I think personally we have to go with it, even though I'm sad to do it. Because I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed people. But knowing that surrounding towns have stopped, we're going to be a drawing cut. So to me, it's just too much.
Finley, do you want to throw your comment in, or?
Because I'm the last one, sure. I don't think the safety concerns that Bill spoke to of the safety equipment getting through town, that wouldn't be a problem. Traffic would be heavily coming in one way and supposed to the other. People can get out of the way in most areas anyhow. I think Nancy touched on the draw. If we're the only ones doing it in September or October, whenever it might be, we'll have that draw. So if I'm the one who would go for whatever seems to be the easiest. I don't mind the old home day concept. I think that's a nice idea. I wouldn't want that to, in the future, take away from Independence Day celebration, because I think that's a very important holiday and a day to be thinking about. So, so I don't mind putting it off for another date. For this year, it might just work out okay in the end. But I don't have major concerns about doing it on the 4th either. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I really believe that we could handle the 4th of July and that we could do it well. I agree that I don't think there's an emergency vehicle problem. I know that we've handled crowds in town. The biggest problem is the people leaving. I don't know how many folks would come from other towns. If they're scared of COVID-19, they're going to be scared of it in our town as much as theirs. And hopefully people that are sick wouldn't come out and we wouldn't have an issue. But you never know. There are asymptomatic folks running around that don't know they're sick that are passing it along. But I don't think we're going to find everybody shoulder to shoulder watching fireworks. I've never seen it that crowded. I've seen plenty of people there. But, I've always sat in a family group, and there's never been a family within 10 or 15 feet of us in the parking lot there. So I don't see the problem, personally. I'd rather keep it. I think the 4th of July Independence is important. I think we've been housed. We've been enclosed in our houses for months now, and people are going stir crazy, and having an opportunity to do something to celebrate would be a good thing. But I certainly am only one vote in 7 of this council. Does anybody else have anything to say? Sounds like we're not going to do the 4th of July. What?
I see Casparius on the screen. Does he want to say, or?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Fine.
By the way, while I'm thinking of it, Tom, if you'd allow me just 1 second, I want to be able to compliment Matt regarding the backup information that he provided to us. It was really thorough and very detailed, and it really did help me personally evaluate all these different things in a really good way. So I want to thank you, Matt, for that information.
Okay. So
Fireworks, or do you want to vote?
it sounds to me like the consensus is against the fireworks.
All right, want to move on?
I couldn't count even 2 votes.
Postponing.
But also, if I could add, but also with the strong feeling that we do want to have it sometime in the fall.
Yes.
I want that to be understood too.
Got it.
Do you expect life to be different in the fall than it is now?
We hope it is.
Hope so.
Okay. Move on.
Okay. So, next is Washington Park Beach. Matt has provided you with some information here about Washington Park Beach. I think the governor's new order might cover some more of this, does it, Matt? Or this particular one? Does it add anything to what you said?
Not really.
Okay.
It doesn't.
All
really
right.
do much.
So, thank you. I think what makes me feel good about opening the beach is that we have a seasonal park attendant that's been working there on the weekends and through Labor Day, weather permitting. And she's there to help enforce Merrimack residency. And it's been very successful with her there. So she's able to she's able to assist with a frequent cleaning of the porta potty and the picnic tables near the waterfront and keeping the area clean of trash. The attendant has a police department portable radio so she can call dispatch quickly if there were a problem to develop. So myself and Matt are both in favor of having the Washington Park open, the Washington Park Beach open.
Anybody else have any comments?
If you want me to continue, so the governor's guidance is relates to it's on the next page after Matt's memo, and it talks about inland beaches. They're saying to limit the occupancy, to deal with social distancing, and the picnic tables should be spread out 10 feet apart. And the gives you the activities that are permitted: walking, running, swimming, sitting, playing, sunbathing, as long as social distancing is maintained. Group activities will not be allowed. It says violators will be asked to leave the beach, and this is the governor's recommendations.
Is that today's recommendation?
I don't think they've been modified. Have they, Matt?
No, they haven't been modified since.
Not for the inland beaches.
He lifted his group of 10 order, so
I understand, but the park regulations are still the same as well.
these
The
are
summer,
state parks.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
the summer camp ones are also haven't changed, even though the recommendations for the summer camp are still the same, even though he's lifted the limits on the groups of 10.
Okay, Peter, you've been raising your hand.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I have no problem with the beach opening up. I like the fact that we've had that person at the beach on the weekends. What I'm curious about is, do we want, as we get into summer, and I don't know if we can use the COVID grant money we discussed at the last meeting, but have somebody there not only on the weekends, but Monday through Friday, if we can use some of that money. Is that feasible? Is it worth it? Do you think we'll see activity on the weekdays in the summer on the beach?
What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Well, we'll partially answer this question when we get down to letter F, but if camp runs, then obviously we would have lifeguards there on the weekdays. We don't tend to see as many people on the weekdays. Usually it's families with small children, that kind of thing, because camp is running. So that in itself is almost a deterrent. It's usually the weekends when we have the bigger crowds. Now, this past weekend, Saturday, we had 150 people on Saturday over the course of 8 hours. And on Sunday, it was about 110. So not huge numbers. And it's about a little, maybe slightly higher than what we've had in past summers, but not overwhelmingly so.
Are they maintaining any social distancing at all? I mean, it's an awful small.
The groups that come together are obviously sitting together, but they are kind of keeping separate from the other groups.
An awful lot of people.
Peter?
I just got a thought is, keep in mind, and I know it's a residents only beach, but like the city of Manchester so far they're not opening their public pools as last I read. So I don't know if that factors in, and I'm not sure what Nashua is doing regarding public pools.
Okay. Does anybody else have comments?
You know, and Tom, real fast, the only reason I bring that up is not to not open the beach, but people will be looking for alternative places to swim.
May I say something? They can also go to the beach. So, the ocean beach, there's all kinds of opportunities now, whereas before, everybody was trying to cram into places that weren't even that great swimming areas because nothing was open. So, it seems like the state is open now for business and to include recreation. And I don't think that we'll be necessarily faced with being inundated by everyone around us. Because in its current condition, and I make sure that you understand that I use that caveat with the understanding that we're in the process of improving that area as well as putting, doing the dredging and the perch beach. At this point in time, it's not, it wouldn't be the first place I think that a person would necessarily go in its current state, if there were other options.
So having said that, what is the state of the beach as far as the perch beach and all that stuff is concerned? Are we going forward with that?
We are, but not until the fall. Because,
Not until the fall.
right, because one of the things, Don just finished a very complicated wetlands permit that's required, obviously, for any dredging or anything at the waterfront. So that's all completed, and I think we would be ready to go if the summer camp wasn't there. So that's another topic, but it wouldn't be complete, I don't imagine. Nor would it be wise to be operating on a beach in the summer.
No, it wouldn't. Is that funding already budgeted though, or was that?
It is,
It is. We can carry it over into next year?
absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. Any other comments on opening Wasserman Beach or leaving it open at this point? Nancy?
Just to add another opinion, I totally agree with opening it.
Yeah, I do too.
I have no concerns.
Okay. So I don't see anybody with a negative as far as opening the Wasserman Beach. Okay,
I'm on board, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Okay, and if there are issues, you can revisit it, just like everything else.
Right.
If you get inundated, if there becomes problems, just like other areas that we've had in town, you can revisit it. You can do all kinds of things like put a limit on the number of people that can be on the beach, as the governor had suggested, if it gets out of hand.
Right.
Okay.
And the park is open, right? I mean, we don't have anything
Yes.
to close the park at this stage,
No,
right?
nope.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing is, what?
Athletic field.
Athletic fields. Now that has changed. So if Matt, if you would, talk to the council about that, please.
Sure thing. So this afternoon, the governor, updated his guidance on it. Originally, he was saying, teams could start practicing, but it was limited to 10, and that has now gone away. The new guidance today says outdoor team sporting events and games can occur, but only for low physical contact sports. Now, they do not define what a low contact sport is, but they do mention throughout the guidance several times, like baseball and softball, they reference. So those are okay. The question then comes on things like soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, and basketball. Realistically, the guidance still talks about keeping 6 feet of social distance as much as possible through these activities. To me, at least, those other sports, you probably really can't do that. So at this point, I think, baseball and soccer can go, baseball and softball can go, but the other ones are still on hold at this point. allow, practice sessions, things like that, but not allow games for those other sports. So they could still kind of, start gearing up for that process. There is a restriction in there that says that only teams from New Hampshire, Maine, or Vermont are allowed. So like, I think about our adult sports, adult softball leagues that have tournaments, teams coming in from all over the place. But there is a restriction to those 3 states. So there can't be any teams from Massachusetts, for example. But that's okay. Those are the main things. Again, it talks about, parents having to wear face coverings, kids, players have to wear face coverings when they still can't be socially distant. The sports, so for example, if MYA was allowed to start softball, do a summer softball league, which they've expressed interest in, they have to do temperature checks on their athletes and on their coaches when they arrive. So there is a fair amount of regulation in there for those teams to allow, but I think it's something that we could allow, with the understanding that they've got these extensive guidelines to follow.
Peter.
Matt, I'm curious what other communities are doing regarding soccer and lacrosse and so forth. Have they started to do that, or?
A few communities have, although again, this only came out at 3 o'clock, so I haven't had a chance to poll any of the other towns yet to see what they've opened and not. But I've heard from 1 or 2 in the area that has. But like I said,
until today at 3 o'clock, none of it was allowed.
Right.
By the governor, not allowed, but none of it was recommended by the governor. So for the most part, no one was doing anything except maybe practice things where they talked about 10 people and social distancing and that kind of thing, right, Matt?
Correct.
So we don't really know what other, we can't know what others are doing.
Are the bases going to be 6 feet wide?
Barbara?
Yeah. Just to recap, Matt, what are the sports that he said was good to go, and what weren't the ones good to go?
The ones that he specifically outlined in the guidance document was softball and baseball. There's references in there in multiple places that talk about bats and gloves and not sharing equipment and that kind of thing, but it doesn't specify any of the other sports. It just says low physical contact sports. So I'm kind of on the fence about soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. I would kind of think that basketball and football would be off limits at this point for sure, because they are all about physical contact. But the soccer, field hockey, and lacrosse, it's like you can't participate while staying 6 feet apart from each other because you've got to run in and hit the ball or that kind of thing in soccer. But I could go either way on those 3.
I'm kind of surprised about softball and baseball because I've never known the battery to be 6 feet apart. When you're talking about the catcher and the hitter and whoever is behind them.
The umpire.
Yeah, being the umpire. So whatever.
My guess is that all 3 of them would be facing forward per se, so it's not like they're face-to-face contact, and it's kind of a brief period of contact. And they do make in baseball, they do actually make a double wide base, like a first base, so that if somebody's on first, it's a couple of feet away from where the fielder would be holding them on.
And currently our fields are closed. So we have to keep that in mind too. And people are itching to get on them. So unless somebody is going to be standing there and saying, oh, you're playing soccer, out, or you're doing this, out, you have to, give guidance there, but we don't have anybody going to be standing around telling people what sports they can play. We can put it up on signs, but we're not going to go doing that. So we just have to keep that in mind.
Yep.
Thoughts?
I had my hand up. I didn't know. I have no problem with the fields opening up. I don't have a problem with baseball or softball. I played it for many years and had very little physical contact. So I'm not worried about those. And I'm even kind of on the fence about, I know you do have some contact with soccer, but it's a big field and you're moving around in lacrosse. So I'm even kind of inclined to say yes to them. Basketball, yeah, you're a little tighter, but the question of the fields, I'm good with opening up the fields to the organized sports.
Bill?
Okay, Bill.
Matt, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, I appreciate your analysis. And like what Nancy said, thank you for pulling the information together. I would say I agree with you. I think I would have concern with football and basketball because I think the proclivity is contact is going to happen much more frequently with those sports as opposed to the other sports. I think with proper coaching and refereeing, you can easily make soccer and lacrosse and field hockey pretty close to making it as non-contact as possible. It'd be more skill-oriented in that particular regard, as opposed to heading the ball, two people jumping up and heading for a ball and, body contacts that you tend to see jostling for position in field hockey and lacrosse. That could easily be mitigated. So those particular sports, along with baseball and softball, I really don't have any concern with. I'd say the people that enjoy those sports, let's get them out there on the field. But I do agree with you. I think with football and basketball, I think that there is a proclivity there for a lot of contact there. So I would have concern with those particular sports. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nancy.
What I'm thinking about is what I agree with, first of all, with Pete. I think we should open it up. But I think there is a differentiation between sports that we are saying, gee, you can schedule games on versus practice, like softball and baseball. I can foresee having kids practice soccer and they don't have to get into the body things. They can in fact do some drills, which they could do that would be good physical activity, but we wouldn't approve of games. So I think all of those things can be accomplished, and we have to make sure that the only things we approve of in terms of approved games are like softball and baseball. So I think we can accomplish a lot of things, and I agree with Eileen. We are not going to be responsible for policing that. I mean, we have to acknowledge that, but we can give recommendations related to, like the MYA. If you want to practice soccer, one, it's your responsibility. We are saying do minimize body contact, no games for sure. That's the kind of middle ground I think is possible that I would like to see.
Thank you. Finley. You're muted, Finley.
I'm usually the guilty one.
That's number 3 times, right? Sorry. I was saying this is more painful for me than PFOA. At what point it is a personal responsibility thing, in my opinion, but at what point do we pick up liability when the sports organizations let it go? I mean, I would imagine that whatever, I don't know if they do Park Warner football, whatever it is now, those organizations, I would imagine, have their rules set up to deal with this type of thing. And I don't know if they do or not, but tell me you can't play games. I appreciate your try, Nance. It's a bit cumbersome, and I'm just not sure where to go. I'd rather generally open it up, continue making sure people know where we stand, that you have to be careful, and we put the signs up recommending that if you're going to be utilizing these fields, let those organizations know, here's the reality. You have to be aware that you're doing this, you're, you might be conflicting with state orders or whatever, but I think it's some fashion we kind of have to let go, I think, but it's, I don't know. Responsibility has to be borne by the folks who are participating, I think. We just have this space.
Peter?
Yeah, I can't speak for sure, but from what I hear, I think organized sports in of themselves are preparing to deal with this in each of the various sports. Hockey, soccer, they're all, I think, preparing their own way to deal with this to cover themselves as well. So, again, and to go back to a point, I don't have a problem opening the volleyball courts either at Watson Park.
Anybody else? I certainly agree with Finley's comments. I think we open the field and put up signs that warn people and highly recommend they follow the governor's guidance on how they behave. That would be my vote.
And the consensus is,
We need a motion.
I think so this time.
Okay. Somebody want to put a motion together for opening the fields or not?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, go ahead,
go
Bill.
ahead, Peter. No, go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
I make a motion to open for the town of Merrimack first to open our all of our various ball fields.
Second.
Seconded.
With no restrictions from the town of Merrimack, just guidance, signage.
Yeah, I think we've discussed not opening basketball and football. Let's give that a little time, but I'm good with opening all the other sports.
Well, so you said in your motion to open all the fields in Merrimack.
Yep.
Are you wanting to exclude basketball and football, or?
Yeah, at this time, yes.
I didn't catch who seconded.
I did.
Barbara, you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to open all fields except to exclude basketball and football activities at this time. Is that where we want to go? Does anybody else want to talk to that? Finley?
I'm just where I am in the beginning. I'll support this because it gets most of it out of the way. But again, I think the programs themselves have kind of the liability about the whole thing. And if they're, they should be taking care of those things. I think of Park Warner football. I can't imagine they'd let them do it right now, but I don't know. So, from my standpoint, I'm thinking that if we open the fields, again, as I said a minute ago, just reaffirming our desire, our having our signs put up on the fields so everybody knows, and when they organize through Matt or the town to utilize those fields, they know exactly where we stand on it. You have the whole, wherever we are, at whatever level throughout this balance of this pandemic. So I'll support this motion because it's getting rid of most, taking care of most of it for me.
Barbara?
Do we need to, sorry to interrupt, do we need to include in the motion that signage regarding social distancing and rules should be posted?
May I?
Go ahead, Eileen.
I really like what Finley just said, and I wonder if and Peter, to put up the signage, I think that's a good idea, and you could include that in your motion. But I wonder if some of the organized sports that Matt should not make somebody sign a waiver, but have a sheet of paper with the governor's orders and have them sign off saying they've read them. If they have to require approval from the town in order to, which would be organized sports. And we wouldn't have football or basketball. What do you think about that?
Barbara?
Well, Well, here's something that may tie into what you just said, Eileen. How often do these teams play other teams from out of state?
Matt,
It really depends, sorry. Matt.
Go ahead.
It really depends on tournaments, because softball AAU tournament could be 3 states, it could be a weekend, it could be 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. It all depends on
shouldn't be
how,
tournaments right now,
but,
right?
but they're games, they're games, they play games against one another. So it all depends on one day that a team can play, one weekend, a team can play 6 games or 8 games. It all depends on
Or traveling.
traveling and all that other stuff, because there's a
So-
lot of traveling teams, especially in this area with Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. They're all gonna wanna get their games in and play. They've been itching to play and itching to get on the fields for some of these AAU teams, and for baseball, and especially for softball.
So to Eileen's point, if we're going to have teams that are coming from other states, they're not going to be familiar with what the guidance is from our governor. It may not be a bad idea to make sure that when they come for those games, they get the literature that says, here's what's going on.
We could also just say only in-state.
Yeah, but how would they have their,
Well, they wouldn't.
Well, that's what's happening. The governor has said in-state stuff,
True, true.
or you have a 14-day quarantine. I mean, that's,
Yep.
That's gone.
I was gonna say the 14th
That is-
day, I think is gone.
that's gone too? Okay.
Just
But he
something
did,
to
but he
think
did
about.
mention to keep out Massachusetts from what, baseball or something like that?
You definitely need to.
Matt,
From all sports.
Massachusetts, definitely.
Matt, go ahead. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, so the guidance says Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont are the ones that are allowed. So our fields are booked mostly by local groups that are organizing, for example, the men's softball tournament, for example. So I've already started sending the update of the latest guidance to them, with the understanding that I'd be following up with them tomorrow with what the council decides. But obviously, we can tell them, okay, you can't accept teams from Massachusetts in your tournament at this time. And it's going to be a little bit of an honor sister on them because again, I can't go out and check fields and check birth certificates or something, residency at the fields on a Saturday afternoon. But I think if we give them that information out front, then
They can't come here.
that's the condition of getting your permit. We don't tend to get very rarely do we get somebody from kind of outside of this area, outside of the county, looking to book our fields because there just isn't availability. Between the MYA and kind of our local groups, 95% of our field space is booked by those groups. So they do have, the ones that have tournaments do obviously have people coming from other ways. But again, we have the main permit holder that we can kind of hold accountable for here's what the rules are.
And that's what I was talking about, basically, the main permit holder, whoever comes in, they don't need to sign their life away, but they just need to sign to say that they are aware of the governor's rules, and here they are, and that's all. I'm not asking for somebody to give a quart of blood or something. I think that we have to be careful to not, I mean, we could talk about this all night, and dissect every single sport. So I think you're going on a good path here. And I would just recommend making some, I mean, you seem to have come to a conclusion. I think it would be good if you would just wrap it up. If you don't mind.
Matt, can I ask you to repeat your understanding of the governor's current orders on fields? In my packet, I have orders dated May 18th.
Right.
That's no competition.
So that was the one that came out before today. That one limited to teams that could practice only, no games. There was a limit of 10 people at a time. And
He's asking you what it is now.
and versus what it is now, which is you can have up to 50 people on a field. totaling, it basically says 2 teams, but it also says 50 people. No sharing of equipment, low contact sports, promoting social distancing as much as possible. Spectators are supposed to wear masks as well if they can't be socially distant. And then again, teams only from Maine, New Hampshire, or Vermont at this time.
So it sounds to me like we could just open all the fields and say no contact sports, follow the governor's guidelines.
Yeah.
Does that summarize what you just said?
Yes.
Peter, do you want to keep things the way they are, or do you want to remove the restriction on sports and just say no contact sports and follow the governor's guidelines? Or
Every sport to some extent has contact. So
I understand that, but
and I don't want to say that. So to me, my motion is to open up the fields to all the aforementioned sports, or to baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, and withhold right now on the football fields and the basketball courts. And also I want to include volleyball.
Can I just?
Would you add field?
I'm sorry, but can I ask you to have Matt, because Matt approves these, Matt, deals with these, that we add the 3 states that the governor has outlined to your motion?
Okay, following this, and only 2 teams from New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont, as per the governor's guidelines and CDC, or the governor's guidelines.
are you okay with that addition? Okay.
I have a
so
question.
Second agrees. Nancy, go ahead.
Where does tennis come in? Do we have to specify? Or is
Tennis
that,
courts are already open.
the tennis
Tennis
courts
courts
are?
are already open.
Oh,
We never closed them,
sorry.
really.
Do we, while we're doing this, and we've included volleyball in the conversation, do we want to include the skateboard park in this conversation or in this motion as well?
That's separate though, isn't it?
It's separate, yeah. Whatever you want to do. You can combine them all together, or you can do them separately. It's up to you.
It's not an athletic
I
field.
would prefer you deal with the fields,
Okay.
and then you deal with the volleyball, and then you deal with the skate park.
Okay.
Okay, so Bill, go ahead.
Would Councilor Albert be kind enough to add field hockey to the list of approved sports? That was omitted in the motion.
Absolutely. I would amend to include field hockey.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, you're muted.
I'm muted, thank you. I'm not clear anymore exactly what our motion is. We originally started.
Thank you.
We started with fields discussion. We brought in basketball and volleyball. But we're leaving out skate park, tennis courts and stuff. So I need, if you don't mind, to restate your motion. We can be clear as to what we're asking to vote on at this point.
I make a motion that we open the town fields to the sports of baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, and field hockey. I'm not going to discuss any of the sports. We'll do those separately as the town manager's recommended.
To the, and mention the states, please.
Oh, and only teams that are from the states of New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont may participate in these organized sports.
As per the governor's orders.
As per the governor.
Thank you.
Barbara, do you second that still?
Yeah, second.
I appreciate that, and I know that's not the normal order of business to do that. You would probably withdraw the motion and restate the motion, but we'll go forward with the understanding that the motioner and seconder are approved. So right now we're talking about opening up the fields in Merrimack. And we're talking literally fields. We're talking dirt fields, not concrete courts. At this point, to organize practice and games from the state of Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, excluding football,
Basketball.
pretty much accepting anything else, would be played on a dirt field or grass field. If that's clearly stated enough, we'll go to a vote.
Mhm.
Lon? Lon Woods.
Woods, yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy Harrington?
Yes.
Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Yes.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd, aye.
Okay, so that passes 7-0 to open the grass fields in Merrimack, limited to the organized teams from Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Which brings us to the various different courts like basketball, volleyball, and the skate park. If you want to take those up separately, we can do that.
Yes, please.
Okay, basketball. There's been a lot of talk already about whether we should allow basketball or not. I'm going to throw my 2 cents out before because I never got a chance to speak before. I think basketball should be opened up to non-contact opportunities, pickup games. I wouldn't necessarily suggest 5-on-5, college level games where they're liable to get a lot more contact. But there are a lot of junior high school students who don't have goals at their homes that would like to go out and practice shooting, playing different games, pickup games between 2 or 3 folks or 4 or 5 folks. We're still well under the 10 limit that's no longer in effect. And I think lots of basketball can be played without a huge amount of contact sports. And then we ought to be able to put up signs that say, avoid contact and social distance as much as possible, et cetera, et cetera. That's my 2 cents. Anybody else have any thoughts on basketball? Peter?
Well, yeah, my brand of basketball, and I wasn't great. We tended to have a lot of body contact. So,
It's not in the rules, but you don't have to play by the rules.
yeah. I get it though. I'm with you. I'm kind of inclined to open it.
Anybody else?
Again, if there's abuse and if you find that people are, ignoring the rules, not the rules, but the guidance, and it becomes, mess, then, you can revisit it. Everything that we're doing now, as we know, is brand new. We don't really know the answer to anything. So we're just using our best judgment. And you can change it when you want.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that guidance. Anybody else have any thoughts on basketball? Can we have a motion to allow the basketball courts to be open or available for folks to practice?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Bill and seconded by Nancy to allow the basketball courts in town that are town operated to be open for people to practice and play on, with the understanding that there should be minimal contact and they should social distance and behave themselves as much as possible under the COVID-19 threat. Right?
Yes,
A fair restatement?
yes.
Okay. If there's no other comments, we'll ask for a vote. Lon Woods?
Woods, yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy Harrington?
Yes.
Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Yes.
And Bill Boyd?
Boyd, aye.
I think that was an aye. So yes, passes 7-0-0. There was some static when you said that, Bill. I wasn't trying to be flip.
Not a promise, Mr. Chairman.
So that brings us to volleyball court.
Yeah. So,
Is there any particular guidance from the governor on something like volleyball?
there isn't, no. So I think it's kind of the same thing as if you're gonna allow, basketball, if you're, I'm seeing the theme here, is that, you want them to follow the guidance, but you're not their parents. So, you want people to be able to enjoy the amenities of town, but, with the understanding that they're gonna have to use some of their own, personal responsibility. So, thinking that you're going to be approving of the volleyball court.
Anybody have any comments, or Peter?
People are doing it anyway with no net, right, Matt?
I'd make a motion that we open the volleyball courts.
Seconded.
Made by Peter and seconded by Lon Woods. Matt, did you want to make a comment on either the courts or the use? Okay. Bill, did you have a comment?
Just a quick comment. I happened to be down at Watson on Monday, and there was a group of kids that were playing wiffle ball on the volleyball courts. What wasn't a part of wasn't on our list of unsanctioned activities. So, but it was interesting.
It's
no, absolutely not.
It's
yeah. So, thank you.
Okay.
The tennis courts are open. I'm sorry.
Do we need to take a vote on the volleyball court?
I don't think so.
I have a motion.
We got a motion.
Oh, you got a motion? Okay, never mind.
Got a motion.
By Pete and second by Lon. Lon Woods, how do you vote?
Woods, yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy Harrington?
Yes.
Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Yes.
And Bill Boyd?
Boyd, aye.
Bill, you're last only because you're in the lower right corner, so.
That's because you're late. You were late.
Yes, I was tardy. I didn't have a tardy slip. I get it. So
That's
not
why
a problem.
You get down in the corner.
I know.
So,
I gotta look up like this now.
yes.
Finley's in my center square, so. Okay, so that brings us to the tennis courts are open. Skate park?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Barbara.
I'd like to make a motion that we open the skate park.
Second.
Motion made by
Point
Barbara.
of order, Mr.
Nancy,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
Because my daughter is a camp counselor, I need to recuse myself on this vote.
From the skate
Oh,
park?
the skate park?
I thought we were talking now. I apologize.
We're
My
talking,
papers are out of order. I'm sorry.
I'm going down the list and it's in the agenda.
Yep, I got you.
Does anybody have any comments on the skate park? Peter, Finley?
I would just say with the same caveat that we have for many of the others, the signage.
Yeah, again, I think Eileen and Paul hear that pretty well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Eileen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I
We'll call for a
was
vote.
out.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was out running Monday morning, and I saw a kid by himself skating in there on Sunday morning. So
Okay,
okay, just tell him.
thanks. So we'll call for a vote. Lon Woods?
Woods, aye.
Tom Koenig, aye. Nancy? Harrington?
Yes.
Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Aye.
And Bill Boyd?
Bill Boyd,
That passes 7-0-0. Playgrounds.
Okay, the governor, still recommending that they remain closed. I strongly also feel that way. And that's just my point of view. We discussed this at length before.
Okay. I don't think anything's changed as far as the way people play on playgrounds and the inability to keep them sanitized or cleaned or anything of that nature. So I guess I'm gonna have to go along with you there. Anyone else have thoughts on the playground?
Monday.
Seeing Peter?
I don't know if we're gonna make a motion, but if we're just discussing, I'm not in favor of opening the playgrounds.
I don't see anybody looking to make a motion to open them, so I think we can just go with consensus on that one.
Yes.
We've already talked about Town Hall Complex, right? as part of lifting our emergency order. Do you want to talk further about that, Eileen?
Just a little bit. We had put together, Sharon had put together this, a very comprehensive plan because we really need to do it primarily for the employees, you know, for our own liability reasons. So I just wanted to kind of give an overview of what people can expect on Monday when they come to town hall. First of all, I just would say, please remember, COVID-19 is still with us. There are places that are experiencing increased hospitalizations, not here in New Hampshire, but we have to, you know, remember that it's still with us. So I respectfully ask people to continue as much as they are able to, you know, do their business online. Obviously, this is your town hall. We're opening and you're welcome. So and I'll leave that there. So on Monday, what we have done is when a person, we're going to have a person, and it's actually several of the police volunteers that they'll be doing different days or different shifts where they'll be sitting at kind of on a higher stool at like a table, like a podium, where they'll have masks for people. We're going to be requiring people to wear masks. We're going to be requiring people, we have spots on the pavement marked out for 6 feet outside, as well as inside town hall. So the person that will be sitting there, whoever it is, will offer people masks if they don't have masks. He'll have, he or she will have hand sanitizer, which will also be inside. You know, it's going to all be a very, people should remember that just because you're 6 feet apart doesn't mean that the transactions are going to take longer than they would have if you were close up and standing next to each other. So the transactions go just as quickly with people socially distanced as not. So we ask people to be respectful of that. We're going to, we intend to have our usual welcoming face, and our employees will have, you know, the proper, you know, like in the clerk's office, they are unable to have 6 feet between them. And while our buildings have been closed, they've been able to spread out into the other conference room to do their work, so they're 6 feet apart. Now there are plexiglass separators between them so that they can be closer than 6 feet. They have, you know, so we thought about it very carefully. Paul's done a really good job, in particular, acquiring the things that we need that are in scarce supply. That's kind of all I wanted to say is, you know, just please be patient and understand that we are here for the public. It's your building. We're just asking people, please be respectful and of our employees and your fellow citizens who are here to do business.
So that goes along with all of the things that we've been saying as far as social distancing and being responsible for yourself and the people around you. So if don't go into town hall, please don't share whatever you might have, whether it's just a cold or anything worse, COVID-19, pneumonia, anything. We don't particularly want to share that. So you're quite welcome to come to town hall, but you don't need to for your safety and the safety of our town employees and the other people around you. Try to do the work online or through the Dropbox or whatever. I mean, it's been working very well for the past several months. I've been able to register cars, apply for absentee ballots for my son, all those kinds of things using those things we've been telling everybody all along. So for all of you folks, yes, the town hall will be available to you, but if you don't need it, don't put yourself at risk, and certainly don't put our staff at risk unnecessarily. If you have to come in or you feel like you really need to talk to somebody, by all means, come and talk to us. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Seeing none, are we good with town hall then, Eileen?
Yes, opening on Monday.
Opening on Monday.
Yes.
So we're back to open and available. There will be some buildings we'll ask you probably not to go into. The highway garage lobby will be available for people if they need to, but the wastewater, there's not very often a reason for somebody to go down there. Or contact people if you need to. Yes, Peter.
Police lobby, is that open in the fire and station and the building permits and stuff?
Absolutely, yes. With the same precautions. The only one that really needed to be modified, obviously the police department is fine. One of the things that Paul has offered, and his employees have graciously offered here at Town Hall, is that we're going to have signs pointing people in that Paul has offered to different areas. So Paul's office will be taking tax payments to take some of the burden off of the clerk's office. So if somebody has a check for the exact amount for their tax bill, he can come and take that. If they want to do notary work, that can go over there. And Kyle has talked about the stickers for the transfer station will be done somewhere else. So we're trying to kind of split up things that were normally done in the other. And I completely got off track, Peter. So yes, the police department lobby will be open. I don't think they have any specific designation because there's not a lot of traffic. If it becomes a problem, then maybe they'll need to put spots down there or talk to people about it. We had to make modifications in terms of plexiglass and that sort of thing at the fire department so that people could access the building official and health officer. So yeah, the way that it works is if you're going to open your buildings, you're going to open all of those that are accessible. As Tom pointed out, the wastewater treatment plant is not accessible in a general sense.
Same with some.
Just to follow up, Eileen, and I know we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, but do we see people getting access to the library at some point?
We haven't talked about it. I haven't talked to, unfortunately, because I really like her. I haven't talked to Yvette in a while, so I'm not really sure. I just have the stuff that I read, which is they're looking at a kind of a phased opening, and they don't give any specific date as to when they're opening.
They do have an opening plan that's been vetted. So their trustees have voted on an opening plan. And as Eileen said, it's going to be a phased-in approach.
And when we get a copy of it, Pete, we'll make sure we make it available to you guys. I think some of their concerns were early on when all the news was saying that that COVID-19 is all over papers and books and surfaces, and it lasts for 4 days and things like that. The guidance on that has changed dramatically in terms of how it adheres to and lasts on surfaces. So I think that may have been one of the reasons why they were reluctant to open.
Okay, thank you. So that pretty much covers the basics of the town emergency order. It leaves us with the Natticook Day Camp, kind of the elephant in the room discussion.
So I'm going to, at the last meeting,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Bill?
I apologize for interrupting, but point of order, I need to recuse myself. My daughter's a camp counselor there, and it would be inappropriate for me to be a part of the conversation, so I'm recusing myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so, as I said, at the last meeting, I was waffling all over the place about the day camp. And since then, I have come to a firm opinion. And, it doesn't mean that it needs to be your opinion, but I think that it's important for me as the manager to give you a starting off point and give you my reasons. So, strictly from a health perspective, I recommend that you do not open the Natticook Day Camp. I consider that, given the limited amount of information that is still unavailable on the COVID-19 and how it works, that it is not, it would not be unreasonable for us to say, hey, listen, let's sit this summer out. There's 6 weeks. And the thing that kind of threw me over the top with that, there were 2 things. One is kids running around with masks. It's just impractical. 2 is that what happens if you hire all these kids, if you sign all these counselors up, which is extensive, and Matt's done a lot of that already. So we're ready to open if you decide that you want to. Not quite ready. It takes a month because, but all the background checks and all that stuff have been done. It's very extensive work that Matt has to do on that, and Sharon. So, so you have, I think there's 40 total, 40 staff.
Yes.
40 staff members. And so you get all those, you try and recoup all of the people who have canceled already, dip into your list to see if you have enough people. Let's say you get it all opened up and ready to go. And the idea is that they're going to be in groups of 10 or so, which is still the governor's guidance, so that they would have, basically their own social group where they would have a facility that they could go inside if it rained and that kind of thing, to try and kind of limit limit the exposure. But, like I said, the thing that really threw me was, let's say we get this all done. We get the food ordered, we get the supplies ordered, we get the masks, everybody knows what they're doing, everybody's temperatures taken and all this stuff. And a kid comes down with COVID-19. Now what happens? So to me, the complexity and the concern that I have for the impracticality of a summer camp this year is that I recommend that we not open. Matt feels differently. So that's my 2 cents.
That was about a quarter's worth, but thank you.
A quarter, yes. But I was decisive this time, right? Gotta agree with that.
There, I'll agree. Does anybody else have any comments they want to make? Peter?
I guess if Matt disagrees, I think we should give him his time to speak.
I have no problem with that. I was just going to give you guys a chance to chime in if you had dying words. Nancy, did you want to say something real quick?
Actually, I do, but I wanted to hear from Matt first, so I agree with Pete.
Sounds good. Matt, what's your thoughts?
Thank you. You know, as you can imagine, you know, now that it's almost the middle of June, we got a lot of parents that are panicking. We did see, while we were waiting for the guidelines to come out in May, you know, we did see a big drop in registrations, 44% of them. And, you know, that brought us down to about 65 campers a week, 70 campers a week. And based on the guidelines, you know, we need 80 to break even. And I'll talk about more of that in a second. But this is what we've done for 2 months, is try to plan and put in every single procedure that we can do in order to make this a safe summer. I actually, you know, I hold board roles on the executive board for both the New Hampshire Camp Directors Association and the New Hampshire Rec and Park Association. And I was actually one of the people that was writing the draft guidelines that went to the task force. So like I said, this is what we've done for 2 months now. When the, you know, campers, and, you know, if you look at the statistics of, you know, here in New Hampshire, campers and our kind of high school age and college age staff are far less likely to develop serious symptoms of COVID-19. While there is no 100% guarantee, we believe we have kind of accounted for every precaution to make it, you know, camp run, you know, and meet all the governor's guidelines and the intent of all the guidelines. As Eileen said, you know, the campers get assigned to a small cohort groups of 10 people, you know, so it's going to be, you know, 8 campers and 2 staff. And they are isolated from every other group throughout the course of the entire day. So you know, we have a driving drop-off procedure that we've used in camp for several years now anyway. So car pulls up, our camp health supervisor goes through our screening questions. We do a temperature check on the campers. Obviously, if anybody has any of the, you know, symptoms, somebody in the household has signs of symptoms or has been exposed, then they're not allowed to drop off. Now for our staff, they actually would go through the exact same process. We daily temperature checks and going through health screenings for them as well. Our activities would take place as much outside as possible, except for obviously heavy rain or thunderstorms. You know, one of the nice things about Wasserman Park is we got a lot of buildings over here. And that's something that most other towns, the ones that have already chosen to close, they close because they don't have the space to go indoors. And it gets really difficult. You're trying to open only on sunny days, because there are times when it's raining at 7 in the morning, and by 8:30 it's perfectly beautiful for the entire rest of the day. So we have a lot of buildings that we could spread out so that there is no overlapping space. The guidance does recommend that staff wear masks whenever in close quarters with children, or anytime they have to go inside where social distancing cannot be observed. We've kind of prepared for that already. You know, that's kind of already written into our operating plan. The cabins that we have here, each of these groups of these cohorts would be assigned one cabin. It's a place where here's where you dump your backpacks. You know, backpacks are even socially distanced from each other within the cabin. They have one designated bathrooms. And then each group gets their own set of arts and crafts supplies. It's their own sports equipment. The buildings get cleaned multiple times throughout the day, so that we're kind of covering all of those areas. Now, there are 2 areas, 2 hurdles, I think, that I wanted to talk about. One is in the guidance, it says that older children who are able to be compliant with cloth face coverings should be asked to wear a mask over their mouth and nose when they are in close proximity to other staff and children, and when social distancing is not possible. However, the guidance language doesn't say what an older child is. The state has left it specifically up to us to decide what age is appropriate. Now, when the guidelines first came out, I'd been kind of thinking maybe 8, maybe 9 in my head, thinking about my own kids. I've got a 7 and an 8-year-old, and kind of how they've responded to wearing a mask, you know, throughout this process. I've talked to other camps. Some camps are setting specific ages as young as 6. Some are setting it as 12 or 13. And some camps are leaving it entirely optional up to the individual family members to decide whether they want their child to wear a mask. And that is technically an option. because it is a recommended guideline for masks on children, not a requirement. I kind of feel like after talking to some of the other camps more, maybe our oldest campers, 12, 13, but certainly not a 6-year-old. Just getting them to not touch their face and those kinds of things. But it is something that is up to the town to decide if it's something we, want to require. We don't technically have to. In talking to Camp Sergeant, for example, Camp Sergeant has made it entirely optional. They're not going to require any campers to wear masks. They're actually not even going to require their staff to wear masks, is what they told me. I feel like staff probably should be, but that is technically an option. Now, the second hurdle that we're kind of looking at is a potential financial one. As you know, the day camp program is entirely funded by participant registration fees. The guidance from the state basically says no more than 10 people in a group, campers and counselors combined. Now, in a normal year, we would have 150 kids with 40 staff members. To meet the guidelines, we're looking at the same number of staff, but can only take about between 80 and 90 kids and still have enough staff to meet the ratios. We're looking at 9 groups at this point in order to fill that in. Now, we had, with it, probably early May, we had gone and actually turned off registration because I was afraid of having, 150 people signing up and then not having enough staff and be faced with the challenge of who do we kick out of camp if I can't staff that many, and fortunately we didn't have that issue because, like I said, we did have a big number of withdrawals. But in the last couple of weeks, as people have called us, we have been putting them on the wait list and just said, once we kind of figure out where we are and if we're definitely running, then we can go through and add those people from the wait list back in. And again, most of those are within the last, say, 3 weeks. So theoretically, unless they found another option, most of them, should be still looking to come to our camp if we open. Based on our kind of enrollment numbers and assuming that most of those waitlist people would join us, we're probably around 70, 75 campers a week. Based on the budget, I have actually updated the budget from what was in the packet I sent you last week. We need 80 campers a week to hit our break-even point. So we're not far off if we're at 70, assuming that we're able to get most of those people off of our wait list. But the risk obviously is until I start calling them, I don't know that I have them. At 70 campers a week, we're looking at about a $13,000 loss in kind of direct costs of running camp. But again, we're at 75. We don't think it's too much of a stretch to get to 80. So that's, something that's an option.
Matt?
Yes.
Matt, may I interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
Okay, just regarding the finances, I was not basing my opinion on finances, but when we talk, I wasn't saying that to you. So what you need to know is that whether we are open or closed, we lose at least $50,000. And what I mean by losing that is, as you know, there are expenses that each fund that is not the general fund has got to pay over to the general fund for payroll, for some of Matt's salary in this case, for these various kinds of things, administrative costs that get paid over to the general fund. Now, for this particular fund, it's approximately $50,000 for the summer camp. So when Matt says that we will lose 13,000, it's 50,000 plus 13,000, or versus closing and losing 50,000. So I just want to compare apples to apples to say that, just so you have a perspective of all the factors. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. And I was getting to that. I just wasn't quite there yet. Now, Camp Sergeant, and I said, is planning on opening on June 22nd, which is the first date that camps are opening. They're planning on taking 225 kids a week.
Wow.
But according to their camp director, they're almost full for the entire summer at this point. Again, a lot of the people that were originally signed up for us, you know, where we said, wait a minute, we don't have an answer yet, rushed over there, and they started filling up pretty quickly. Now, if we're able to open, as Eileen alluded to, it will take us about a month to ramp up. We have to finalize our rosters, collect camper medical forms, get people on payroll training, you know, all those types of things. And so we would be tentatively looking at a July 13th opening date, which would give us 6 weeks of summer instead of 9 weeks. As I said, Camp Sergeant is opening up on the 22nd. And one of the nice things about that is we get to see what happens when they open. If they open up on, you know, and run those 3 weeks without any significant issues, we can feel pretty good about our decision that, you know, we're doing kind of the right thing. On the other hand, obviously, if they open up with 225 kids and find problems right away, then obviously we can revisit that issue. But my last thought that I just want to leave you with is, at this point, if we close camp, it's 130 Merrimack families that will now have no childcare this summer. As businesses are reopening, and the governor even said today, by the end of this month, pretty much most industries are going to be reopened. And so if we are closed and Camp Sergeant, as for an example, is full, where are these families going to go? I do feel that we can meet the guidelines set forth by the governor. And like I said, we've done nothing but prepare for them for the last 2 months. Thank you.
May I say something? Tom?
Ma'am.
Okay. Matt, I just wanted to say, I want to commend you for all the work that you've done. It's been exhaustive. And every time I've got a question for you, you have an answer for it. And I just want to make sure that you understand that what I'm saying is not as a slight to you and all the significant amount of work that you've done. So I just want to tell you that I really appreciate all the things that you have done to make this happen. So I just guess I would just like to ask the one question. What happens if a kid comes down with COVID-19 on week 2?
As outlined in the guidelines, obviously it would go back with, there would be a tracing of that bunk, but obviously, in my opinion, if we get into week 2 and we have a positive case in camp, then we would shut down at that point. It would be my opinion. I don't know. I think if you had a case in camp, you would have even if it wasn't within the child's group, I think you would have a mass exodus anyway.
Get a fire 40 people and tell
right.
130 people that they have to find other childcare. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up now.
Thank you. I don't even remember the different order of hands. Nancy, did you have something you were wanting to add?
Well, with all due respect, Eileen, and you and I have already spoken about this, I think your intention is absolutely on the money. I have absolutely no question about it. But again, I guess I'm looking at, as always, the benefit risk ratio. In my opinion, the benefits outweigh the risk. I'm not saying it might not happen, but it might not happen. I think we can do that with a lot of things. So my opinion is I think we should open the camp. I think I would value everyone's opinion on this because I think you can rationally debate on both sides. And I happen to fall on the side of opening up camp.
As do I. Barbara?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. So right now it sounds like even if we go and open the camp, we're opening the camp with a shortfall. So there's no way at this point we can raise the price of camp because we've already taken some money on it, correct, Matt? So does any of the CARES Act money help us with making up the shortfall? Because we have the shortfall due to COVID-19.
Nope.
So we would have to eat it.
Municipalities cannot use the COVID-19 CARES money, the gopher money to supplement, lost revenues. Has
Due
be
to
actual-
COVID-19.
due to COVID-19, has to be for
Okay.
actual expenditure.
Are we hiring any extra people or are we having to buy extra supplies for camp that would fall under the CARES Act?
Yes, but they're not included in the expenditures that we're talking about the loss for. So the expenditures for, you know, so things like, he's got some thermometers, where, you know, again, we've got the masks, we've got the hand sanitizer, and those kinds of things. So it's really in the loss of revenue of the ratio to from kids to counselors that where we're losing.
So as time has gone by, you know, when we first started this journey a few months ago, it sounded like even though this was a virus, that it was breaking all the rules. Well, as time has gone on, we found out that it really isn't breaking any rules. It's really an average virus, much like any of the other viruses out there that people can get, whether it's a cold, whether it's the flu, whether it's the mumps, anything else that kids get or we get. It doesn't have an extremely long lifespan on surfaces that they've been able to prove any longer. You know, the only thing here that the difference is that you do begin to shed viruses 2 days thereabouts before you actually start being symptomatic. And by symptomatic, that means that you're running a temp. So even though you're taking people's temps, you're a day late and $1 short by that time. So, you know, when I think of that, but then again, the infection rate hasn't been anywhere near what they predicted. So, yeah, I'm with Nancy. I'm kind of up in the air on this. From a business standpoint, we have to be very cognizant of the fact we're going into this losing money. Can we
We're
take
losing
that
money
hit?
either way at this point, though.
Yeah.
Either way.
No matter what, we're losing money because, yeah, even if we say no camp, we still out what, $50,000.
And that's just a loss of revenues that was anticipated revenue. So it's
Right.
not cash that's going out the door or something.
Right.
Peter, did you have a thought? You're muted, Peter.
All right, my turn to do it.
That's right.
So there's been a lot of good points made here. And I can appreciate all the hard work that Matt has put in to prepare for this. But, you know, when we first began the discussion, at first I thought, oh, geez, you know, this really doesn't seem like a tough decision. Let's open camp. But then I started to think about it more and more. And then I started to read and even today, everything we have to do for this camp. Kids running around in masks, people watching them, people, you know, and I'm thinking, all right, we'll start off like anything. We'll start off strict to the rules and everything else, but I feel like it's going to be onerous and burdensome to continue this for 6 weeks. And I just think that anything we have to think this long and hard about and worry about, I don't think is a good idea. And so I'm not in favor of opening the camp, and I'm sorry that there are, and I know there's some people that count on that, but I think this is a year that, at this point, and not to mention financial issues as well with the camp. Again, I'm not in favor of it. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Peter. Bentley, Lon?
Yeah, people look at me and they say, of course he doesn't want to do things. He's an old man. He's, you know, the top of the curve in terms of statistical going to go anyway. My biggest consternation about this whole thing is the young people and the young kids. And I've read, listened, talked with about all of what we thought we knew in January that we don't think we know today. all of that confusion and all of that change and all of that hasn't convinced me that we shouldn't be taking care of the youngest people. And the campers are our youngest people. And God love them. I spent a career watching young kids. They like to be close to each other and they like to interact closely with each other. That's what they do. I'm not in favor of opening the camp because of that reason.
Thank you. Finley.
Well, the difficulty for me is Eileen was so adamant that that meant something to me. And I know there's been a boatload of work. I can hear it in Matt's presentation. He's put an effort that was heroic, to say the least. But I'm leaning against it because I'm counting a lot on Eileen's thoughts. And she was quite adamant in her decision this evening to tell us what she did.
So can I just say this to you, Finley? All right. So you don't need to rely on my decision, or nor do you have to, nor would I find any insult in that. I can understand everyone's point of view, and I've flip-flopped all over the place. And so if you are leaning, as I said, I really respect what Matt did, and I would, I feel bad if it wasn't open. It doesn't change the way my point of view, but just don't, I sound like I'm 100% certain just because I've been so wishy-washy about it, but I don't think that there is I don't think that there is a cut and dried answer. So I don't think Matt's answer is right, and I don't think mine's right. So I think you should just go with what you feel yourself, and neither one of us would be offended by your position.
All right, you normally give me a lot more latitude and you, when you make your presentation to us, and this one was so concrete. I'm still of the same opinion when it comes to these in general, that people should use their best judgment and be responsible for themselves and their families and so on. Your comments, during Matt's presentation about what happens if all of a sudden, one child comes up with the coronavirus and there's the shutdown and so on, and that would be the best move. There's no doubt about that. All right, I'll be going with my initial thought then. Thank you, Eileen, for making it a little more difficult.
What is your initial thought?
So I'm a personal responsibility guy. Take care of yourself and your family. That's the most important thing for you to do as an individual in our community and our society. And so
open.
Yeah, that's where I'll be then. Yeah, you were so adamant. I
was trying to be decisive.
You were, and I take that seriously.
I know you do, and I appreciate that.
So, but yeah, so for me, as long as the people know where they stand, I wish there was some form of waiver of liability, but there's not. So I'm okay.
So I'm in favor of opening the camp, and I believe so because I think the vast majority of the people there are the least susceptible to vast problems from COVID. The young kids, the middle-aged, the teenage counselors, and things of that nature. From all that I've heard, either very, very rarely get sick, or if they get sick, most of them, the vast majority of them, get more than a sniffle or something like that. It's not exactly like one of them coming down with COVID's going to die tomorrow, from what I can see. When I look at the percentage or the amount of cases in Merrimack, had only maybe 60 or something like that out of 27,000 people come down sick, and we're in the vicinity of Nashua and Manchester, which have had larger numbers, not necessarily larger percentages. I just don't feel like there's this huge risk factor that we're gonna end up with a lot of COVID sitting down at Wasserman Park for summer camp. That if we allow people to be responsible, if we follow careful guidelines that Matt's already set up and is concerned with, if we ask the questions, if you're sick or if anybody in your household is sick, to stay away, I think we run a very good risk of having a good summer, and the opportunity for people to get out. As we've gotten several emails from counselors begging us to open the camp. We've gotten emails from parents begging us to open the camp because the kids need an out. They need to get away from the house. They need to get out and do some things. When you think about the fact that the virus is susceptible to UV, being out in the open air and outside is good for the kids. And there's less chance of the virus being all that dangerous and stuff like that. So the biggest concern will be a rainy day when they're all stuck in a hut somewhere. And then again, we're still in small quantities, small groups. We're not talking about 50 or 100 people all gathered together at the function hall. I think it's a reasonably safe bet to go forward with the onus of responsibility on the parents to take care of their families. And if they want to choose to back out, by all means, let them back out. But let's do what we can to have an opportunity for people and keep the viability of the camp going. That's my thoughts. So we need a motion to allow the camp this summer or not?
No, you voted. I mean, I heard you.
We haven't voted yet.
No.
I'd
We
like to
didn't
see
vote.
a clear vote.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
Barbara?
Yeah, I still have another question. So even if we open the camp, regardless of which way we go, we are in negative numbers from a budgetary standpoint. Where does that budget, where do we make that up? Because no
don't make
matter
it up.
what, we're still running a business.
You don't make it up. It's a revenue loss. So if you, as council members, want to reduce your general fund budget by $50,000, you can do that. The 13,000 that Matt was talking about loss can be absorbed by the fund, who has approximately $26,000 in it. So it can absorb that part.
What can it absorb?
The 50,000 that would normally come over as an assessment against that department to pay for our management, not be absorbed. It would be a loss of revenue. Our budget is set on expenditures, and we have an estimated amount of revenues. At worst, it would come out as $50,000 less in the revenue pile at the end of the day. We have how many million in the general fund right now, Paul? Expected by the end of the year? $7 million. So I mean, 50,000 is not going to change anything.
Well, and that's based on if the revenue stays the same and we don't have a drop in the revenue due to other things like the stock market and everything else. So
we get very little change in revenue based on the stock market.
Okay.
I mean, our investments are not in stocks, right, Paul?
No, it's not possible.
Okay.
Invest in stocks where we might, the only municipal funds that are allowed to be invested in other than strictly treasury notes and collateralized, et cetera, are trust funds.
Okay. I just don't want to be here in December wondering how we're going to make up this shortfall.
I think we're talking relative peanuts at this point.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong, $50,000 is a fair amount of money, but
Well, and it has to hit against the tax base, so I just want to make sure
because the general fund that we've been spending down over the past several years to try and reduce the tax base is we're spending it down every year, 50,000.
And it's 50.
How much? 600,000 in for this upcoming?
I just feel like I have to check to make sure that we can handle it.
Absolutely fine.
50,000. It's 50,000 no matter what we do.
Yep. Well, it could be worse because we could collect all this money and then we have to close the camp and then we have to refund all the money. So, I mean, it could be a bigger.
It would still be 50,000.
Okay.
That's the same assessment we would have been expecting, but
No matter what. Okay.
Right. It's the extra. It's that 14,000 that's different.
Which can be covered by the camp fund or by the
Correct.
Park and Rec fund at this point.
Okay.
So I'd
do
like
we
to
have
make
a
a motion
motion?
then.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to open up the camp, specifically making sure that all of the state and CDC recommendations are adopted and that all the criteria that was presented to us is adopted. And I'm not sure if there's anything else I should add into it.
To begin the week of
July
July
13th,
13th,
to begin the week of July 13th.
right, Matt?
Correct.
okay. Is there a second for that?
Who turned me off?
Must have turned yourself off.
No, wasn't touching my mouse.
Well, I can't turn you on. You have to turn yourself back on.
There ain't nothing to turn on.
Turn your video.
You hit auditorium.
We can
Gone
hear
in and
you.
out several
Oh,
times.
okay.
Well, you keep going. I'll figure something out.
All right, well, we still hear
You
you.
can hear me, okay?
I'll second the motion if no one else will. So we have a motion on the floor to open the camp for the summer beginning July 13th with all the guidelines we've discussed here. Seconded, made by Nancy, seconded by myself. If there's no other comments, we'll go to a vote. Lon Woods,
Woods, no.
Tom Koenig, yes.
Don't worry about it.
Nancy Harrington,
Yes.
Bentley Rothaus,
Yes.
Peter Albert,
No.
Barbara Healy,
No.
so that ties and fails. 3-3. So the camp will not be opening this summer.
So be it.
Okay.
Isn't there a tie vote? There's 7.
No, a tie loses. You need a 50% plus majority to pass a motion.
Bill recused himself.
That's right. Sorry.
Okay. Summer concerts and movies in the park were listed in Matt's one of his community events write-ups. Do we want to talk about whether we continue with those or not?
May I say something? So, sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but, so the guidance obviously has changed, the recommendation. We were going to do some kind of spooky, distancing kind of things, people wearing masks in their cars and spaces between people and things like that. But I think that, if I have read it correctly at the last minute, that Matt has kind of modified his position based on the governor's guidance for gatherings. So that, Matt, do you want to talk about the
Sure.
summer concert series and?
Sure. So as we've said before, the 10-person minimum has gone away, and that was really the big challenge to running concerts, movies in the park, those types of things. And since that's gone away, we think there is a path forward, and what we're looking at for concerts is using line striping paint to mark out kind of 8x8 squares throughout Abbey Griffin Park, which is just the paint washes off every time it rains. But we can actually socially distance people. You come in, you find a space to sit within the square, and then obviously there's walkways between all of the various squares as a way of controlling how many people are down there. People are kind of clamoring to get outside. This is, doing it this way is a much easier option than trying to do kind of a drive-in experience. We had originally reached out to the school district to potentially use the high school parking lot as a drive-in experience, but they're working on the parking lot this summer. They don't know the schedule yet, so it's kind of up in the air. And our concerts are technically supposed to start next week, and so it's like we're just getting ready to cancel at least the first couple of weeks, and then the governor came out today. So I think there is a way to make it work, and still kind of provide that entertainment for families, and do it in a safe manner. And the movies could work the same way. The movies actually we were planning on doing over here at Wasserman Park this summer, and so I have even more space to spread out than I do at compared to Abbey Griffin. And again, so at least we're offering something, because again, camp was the big thing that we do, and now that is gone, we want to be able to still offer services and whatever else that we can come up with this summer. But one, I do need right now, I do obviously need your blessing to go ahead and.
Okay, well, it sounds like a great idea to go ahead and go with it, but I personally feel like what you've outlined with 8x8 areas with 6-foot aisles between all of those areas is overkill, especially given the latest words from the governor, but that's my feelings. Personal responsibility is just as much a part of this as any of the other things we've talked about tonight. And groups should be able to easily sit together, family groups and whatnot, and trying to tell them, stay in these lanes, and if they're being encouraged to wear masks anyway, I don't see a problem with allowing them to go out and just space their groups out without us having to line everything, because that's just an extra time and expense for us to do all of that work. That's my opinion on it. Anybody else have thoughts? Welcome back, Bill.
Want to hear my opinion?
I don't
offer it.
Not
Yes.
really. My opinion is that we should just go forward and allow Matt to put the appropriate venues together to provide for the best social distancing. They're outdoor activities, people like them, and I think that we should just proceed with them.
Okay, anybody else have any thoughts? Peter?
Yeah, now, did I hear correct? We want to use Watson Park as opposed to Abbey Griffin?
No, concerts would still be at Abbey Griffin, as they always are. The movies would be Wasserman Park over here by my office, which I've got I've got plenty of parking, and I've got plenty of room to spread out for potentially larger crowds if I needed to.
And I agree with Tom. I have no problem with this particular issue, because you're in the park, and I don't think we need to put lines on the field. I mean, I've watched those concerts, gone down to a few of them. People want their own personal space anyways, and they kind of give each other distance. So I don't have a problem with that. And in the open air, and there is plenty of spaces to sit. So I'm in favor of that.
Anybody else have any comments on movies in the park or summer concert series? Barbara, did you have your hand up?
Yep. Actually, I'm good with it. Only because parents are going to be there. They're responsible for their own kids versus somebody else, and they should be able to social distance. I think people are probably getting pretty good at this right now. Kids, not so much. Adults, yes. So I'm good with it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? We have a motion to go ahead and allow summer concerts and movies.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded.
Lon, seconded by Bill. No further comment. We'll go to vote. Lon Woods?
Yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy Harrington?
Yes.
Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Yes.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd, aye.
That passes 7-0-0. So we're good for that. Is there anything else we should be talking about relative to opening the town or different fields or courts or activities?
No.
You're done and tired? I mean, the Abbey Griffin Park gazebo and Watson Park Pavilion are not necessarily closed per se, are they? Or do we need to?
We had been limiting them to 10
functions.
people.
Go ahead,
We don't
Matt,
do
I'm
that
sorry.
anymore.
Sorry, we had been limiting them up to no more than 10 people at this point. And we have like a wedding coming up in a couple of weeks that tentatively had been canceled, but hopefully that we can allow them to have theirs because they have more than 10 people.
Okay, that follows the governor's guidelines, right?
Yep.
Peter?
I received an email from a woman regarding the pavilion at Watson Park
Mhm.
and a birthday party for her child where they wanted to open it up. So I don't have a problem with it. I don't know if we need to do it officially.
Not if everybody agrees that we should just go ahead and allow it to meet the guidelines from the governor.
Okay.
Which looks like I'm getting all positive nods at this point, so. I think, Eileen, I beat this one to death. Shall we move on to new business at this point?
Sorry, I got one
sorry.
more.
Okay,
One more and then I'm done. Now that we've canceled or postponed the fireworks and the period's canceled, the July 3rd concert. Usually we get a couple hundred people at that concert. What are your thoughts on that particular concert?
all right, anybody have a comment?
Governor's guidelines.
The governor's guideline says there's no limit on the group size.
Matt, that's it. Abby Griffin.
That's it, Abby Griffin.
I would suggest if we want to do it, then we move it down to Watson and give it much more space.
And leave it up to the Merrimack concert group or who puts that on, whether they're looking to do that or not. All the 4th of July activities, including the fireworks, are canceled, postponed. They may think it's not a good idea. Don't know. But I guess as far as the council's concerned, it's like step in and preclude it. Unless somebody wants to disagree. I don't see anybody disagreeing. Okay, Matt?
Now I'm done.
You're done.
Now I have to go email parents.
Okay. Thank you. Which brings us at rip-roaring speed, 10:11 in the evening, to new business. And Kyle, I really appreciate your being around and sorry for how long this has taken to get here.
Oh, come on, he thinks it's fascinating.
I'm sure he looks like he's totally thrilled. I mean, he's withdrawal request from the Solid Waste Disposal Capital Reserve Fund submitted by the Public Works Director Kyle Fox. Town Council to consider Public Works request to withdraw $20,821 from the Solid Waste Capital Reserve Fund for the purchase of a replacement forklift for the transfer station. Kyle?
Did people want to say something?
Well, do you want to introduce it to us or beyond that intro, or if you're good, then we'll just go straight to discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having me tonight. I'm here tonight to, as you noted, ask for the town council to authorize a withdrawal from the Solid Waste Capital Reserve Fund of $20,821 to replace a forklift at the transfer station. Our current forklift is a 2003, and unfortunately in March, it died on us. Having taken it to a repair shop, it was determined that the repairs would be more expensive than it was worth. So we took the approach of renting a unit, which we've had since March. Given that we don't have an approved budget yet, is why I'm asking for the withdrawal at this meeting. We put bid specifications together, and the finance department bid the new forklift out. We actually put the bid out for new or used units. We received 5 bids for new units and 1 bid for a used unit. The used one, of course, was the cheapest bid price. However, it was a 2013 model year with about 1,500 miles on it. And it was less than $2,000 cheaper than the model we would like to purchase. So we've eliminated that from consideration. So the next 2 low bids were from the same company. They bid 2 different machines. There was a $237 difference between the 2 machines. the manufacturer or the sales rep recommended the Mitsubishi one, which is the one that's $237 more. And some online reviews that solid waste foreman Chris Perot looked through indicated that the Mitsubishi one was probably a better choice for us as well. So that's our recommendation, is to purchase the Mitsubishi unit. The bid price for the forklift is $23,021. They're offering a trade-in on our existing forklift of $2,200, which brings us to our request of $20,821. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Peter?
I was just gonna say, so moved.
Second.
Motion to accept made by Peter and seconded by Lon Woods to accept the withdrawal of $20,821 from the Capital Reserve Fund, Solid Waste Capital Reserve Fund for the purchase of the forklift. Is any other comments by the council? None, we'll go to a vote. Lon Woods?
Woods, yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy Harmon?
Yes.
Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Yes.
And Bill Boyd?
Boyd, aye.
That passes 7-0. Kyle, you're the fastest one through tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry you had to wait till after 10 o'clock to do that.
I feel really bad.
But
I feel really bad, Kyle. I'm sorry.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Good night, Kyle.
Oh, gosh. What do you do it from home?
Okay, so that brings us to minutes. We're looking to approve the minutes from the following town council meeting, May 28th of 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the Thursday, May 28th, 2020 Town Council meeting minutes as presented.
Peter?
Well, this is gonna shock everybody, but I'm gonna make a correction to the minutes. Page 17, line 17, although I appreciate the promotion as Chairman Albert, I believe it should say Counselor Albert.
Okay.
Good catch.
I don't imagine there's any arguments with that.
Nope.
Unless
Is that it, Dick?
you want to argue with him, Tom?
No, I'm not arguing with him.
Peter was very excited about that.
That will probably,
That finger was very demonstrative.
hold on, I was like excited. This will probably be my only amendment to the minutes ever.
Now
Do
the
we need to memorialize the minutes for you, Peter? The Council Peter Albert, May 28, 2020 minutes as amended.
Apparently, Bill, you missed something else because I see Barbara's hand up.
Peter, we
I keep trying to call on Barbara, but everybody keeps
Okay, on page 8,
page 8.
Line 45. Spoke of the council's judiciary responsibility should not be judiciary, it should be fiduciary. Please don't tell us we have to do judiciary as well.
Well, we do a little bit of judiciary type stuff, but this is probably fiduciary is what you were talking about.
Fiduciary, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Not for me.
That works for me. I haven't had a chance to read it. There's no other changes to the minutes. Can we get a second? I don't know who's making noise, but somebody's
What's
making
that noise?
Sounds like a dog.
Second.
All right. Seconded by Finley. Is that right?
Peter.
Peter. Who made the motion? Bill did.
I did.
It's getting late. I apologize. So motion was made by Bill to
It's okay.
accept changes and seconded by Peter. We'll go all to a vote. Lon Woods,
Woods, yay.
Tom Koenig, yes. Nancy Harrington,
Yes.
Finley Rothaus.
Abstain.
What
Abstain.
did you say? Abstain. Peter Albert,
Yes.
Barbara Healy,
Yes.
and Bill Boyd.
Boyd, aye.
So that passes 701 with Finley Rothaus abstaining.
6-0.
601, Mr. Chairman.
601. That's, you know, what's one amongst friends? Which brings us to comments from the press and comments from the public. I have one person who's been hanging on for a long time, and I apologize for not being able to get back to you, but I'm going to recognize, looks like 379 is a telephone number. I'm going to unmute you. You want to go ahead and
Hi.
talk?
Hi, Tom. This is Rosemary Rung. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Oh, great. I had some human error and technological problems when we got to the agenda about legislative update. And I was wondering if you can indulge me now for a few minutes so I can give the town council an update of where we stand.
We certainly can.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. As you know, the New Hampshire House hasn't been meeting. I think our last meeting was in mid-March. But today we did meet. We found a location at University of New Hampshire at the Whittemore Center where we could socially distance and do our work safely. So we met there for most of the day. Now, since we haven't met since March, a lot of the deadlines for the work that we had to get done had already expired. So our first order of business was to vote to suspend the House rules so that we could do business that weren't permitted under the previous deadlines. To suspend the rules, it requires 2/3 vote of the body. And unfortunately, we did not get 2/3 vote. So bills that had been voted on in mid-March, but that they had to go to another committee for a vote, we couldn't take action. So essentially, those bills have now died. We're not going to be able to take action on those bills. There were also several bills that required a suspension of the rules to be brought forth late. So they didn't meet the deadline to be filed. So there were motions to bring these bills up now. All of those except for one died. The only bill we were successful in passing was to allow growlers that have the names of other breweries on to be filled at different breweries. So that we worked really hard to get, we did pass one bill. Even bills that were on our consent calendar, these are bills that they had gone through a second committee, and so they were voted on in the House in March, but then they had to go to another committee. When a bill has unanimous support, so everybody on the committee votes for it, sometimes there might be one person that votes against it, but they agree to put it on what's called the consent calendar. So they can all be voted at one time. The motion to suspend the rules to vote on the consent calendar also failed. So we didn't really have any luck passing any bills except for that growler bill. Now, the only bill that I think is specific to Merrimack was actually a bill that I co-sponsored regarding setting up a revolving fund that would help us, that would take in money from settlements, fines, legal decisions that would help offset the costs that the MVD is incurring to design and build the filtration systems at our wells. So that bill had passed unanimously through the Resources Committee. It was approved in March. The House voted on it, approved it, but it had to go to Ways and Means. And Ways and Means unanimously supported the bill, and it was put on the consent calendar, but the 2/3 of the House did not vote to suspend the rules so that we could take action on that. So that bill's dead, but when that bill, because it is such an important bill and it affects a lot of communities in New Hampshire that have had to do this filtration, a similar bill was filed at the Senate last, when this bill was filed, there was one that was filed at the same time at the Senate. That bill's still alive. Now, in the bill I had in the House, we had allowed private well owners to also take advantage of that fund to help defray expenses that they've incurred in putting filtration on their wells. The Senate took that out. So I really don't know what the final version is going to be that's going to get to the House. We should be seeing that in the end of June. That's when we're going to meet again, is June 30th. There may also be some of these bills that we weren't able to take action on. They may be added to an omnibus bill in the Senate, so they're just kind of all piled in. It really is hard to say what's going to happen with those bills because it's a collection of various bills. Some people may find that they can't vote to approve it because they may have a problem with one. So that's an issue with omnibus bills. It's like, all or nothing. You have to take the whole thing or nothing. So we'll just have to see on that. But that's my update. So our next House session is on June 30th. Many committees have been meeting, as you have, on Zoom. So they've been able to move some work forward. Obviously, it's not as efficient as having access to the whole legislative office building and all the resources there, but we're doing our best to move things along. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, Bill Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rose, thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate it. Quick question. The Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund is not going to be meeting in June. When we last met in May, there was discussion that the commission may get involved with funding testing for those private wells. Was there any language in the bill that you were talking about that's going to fund the trust fund, or is that going to be something separate that's going to be handled if approved, the funding would go somewhere in DES, like the Well Water Bureau or something along those lines, and not go directly to the trust fund?
Well, the bill I had, we left it open that other trust funds or the state could add money into it, but that any money taken out had to be directed for PFAS remediation. So I don't know if that answers your question. I think the trust fund, I think it may need to have some legislative action in order to fund private well owners. Was that your understanding, Bill?
Well, that was my understanding. Because before Clark Frazee left DES, they were going to begin to put together legislative language or basically administrative rules as how that would be implemented at the commission level. But then there was a subsequent conversation with Senator Morse, who chairs the committee, that indicated that there was companion legislation, and I don't know if it was in the House or the Senate, that were kind of sort of competing. So I don't know if your bill was part of that competing legislation, whether there was a funding mechanism that would be directed towards the work being done at the Drinking Water and Groundwater Commission. That's
okay,
what I asked.
Yeah, that's covered in, that is in the Senate bill. I need to get an update from Senator Chanley about what's happened to that bill, what amendments have been done, because it's going through their sausage making factory. So I don't really know how it started or any intentions to amend what has actually happened to date. But I'll find out and I'll let you know.
I just think with some of the private well owners that we have here in Merrimack that have been impacted by this, there's a unique opportunity that there could be some leveraging going on with funding from the state directly to, obviously, the trust fund that I sit on. So I think that, like I said, I think there's a good opportunity that would not only just benefit the Merrimack owners, but other private well owners in the area that were impacted as well. So.
Yeah,
thank you,
I'll
Rosemary.
find out. Yeah, if the well water, if the Senate, I'm kind of thinking that they probably, if they deleted that part from the House bill, because we were kind of working in tandem with the Senate bill, that it probably is not going to make it. But if it doesn't, I'll make sure. I mean, obviously, it depends on the election results in November. But regardless, I'll make sure that we do get a bill in January filed that would cover private well owners. Because as you said, Merrimack has a lot, and actually the state, a lot of people get their drinking water from private wells. So to just say that we're only covering the expenses of PFAS filtration for municipal systems leaves a lot of people out.
And I agree with you. The impact statewide is significant.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Okay, well, thank you for the question.
Any other questions for Rosemary? Thank you very much for hanging out with us. I apologize for not being able to take you earlier, and I really do.
Oh, no, thank you, Tom, for indulging me to at least take me at the end of the meeting. And I'm really sorry. There was a big lag time on, so it was I get to use my favorite word. It's very discombobulating, because I had to finally just shut the computer off. But Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed, I really enjoyed Chief Roy and Deputy Chief Levake's presentation. I thought it was great. I've enjoyed listening to all your conversations regarding, the town ordinance with COVID. So I want to just thank all of you for all your hard work. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Good night.
Okay. Good night. So, since there's nobody else from the public dialed in to the call, we'll open up to counselors for final comments. Peter?
Yeah, I guess in light of all this discussion, I'm kind of is this assumed now that like all the different committees and boards are gonna start meeting in person now? And is our next meeting going to be in person in the Matthew Thornton room? I'm kind of curious about that. So I don't know if we can talk about it now. We have to put it on an agenda.
I can tell you, Tom and I have talked about this, and we just today, we, obviously the number in the room doesn't matter anymore. It's the social distancing that matters. So we talked about, how do we have a meeting without masks and be able to do the social distancing? So Paul and Sharon today actually went in there to see if we could, if we could set up a couple of tables at the end of the horseshoe so that that everybody could actually be 6 feet apart, so you wouldn't have to wear masks. So it's our hope that we can have the meetings, at least my hope, that we can have the meetings in person. That's just my thought.
The governor hasn't said anything about lifting the ability or opportunity for us to have virtual meetings, or is that automatically lifted on the 15th? Or do you know?
You can have virtual meetings whenever you want.
Well, we couldn't before, not complete virtual meetings. You can always have 1 or 2 counselors that can't be there, but
okay, no, the governor hasn't said anything about that.
Actually, there was talk to the opposite, that he was going to keep that in place, the virtual meeting aspect in place.
For an extended period. So it would be my preference to try to have meetings together, because these Zoom meetings or these virtual meetings are a little bit more difficult, just overall to manage. But I think it's clear that if anybody is uncomfortable for whatever reason, they can always call in, and we can have meetings as we've been having them. But that person's going to be at the disadvantage of being separate. And if there's just one person separate, it does get difficult to have the meeting, but it's not hard to run it. It's just more complicated with all the roll call votes and things of that nature.
Tom, So we do need to have a non-public meeting for a couple of matters, but in particular, of timely note is that you have to approve the minute the non-public minutes before the election. Yeah,
Okay, we'll work on that.
okay.
So just be aware, there's two things that are coming up. And
Three.
Three, okay, four. Do I hear five?
Yes.
So, anybody else have any comments from the council? I want to make a public service announcement. I did have a long discussion with a resident who's very concerned about her susceptibility to COVID. She thinks she's immunocompromised. And she's concerned that not all of our businesses are requiring that their staff and people inside their building wear masks, and would like very much if businesses would voluntarily put a sign out that says whether or not they're requiring people to wear masks, so that before someone goes into the building, they can know whether they would feel comfortable or safe. Maybe the sign just says that COVID-19 guidelines are optional. Maybe it says that they're not requiring them, but they're urging them. Maybe it doesn't say anything at all. But so as a shout out to businesses, we would encourage you to let people know if you're taking guidance to keep people as safe as possible. And then that's just a public service announcement. In the meantime, we're constantly asking everybody, as we talked about all night long, that you need to continue to social distance. You need to continue to be careful and responsible for your own health and well-being, as well as the health and well-being of people around you. COVID-19 hasn't gone away. In some states, it seems to be resurging, if you will. They've had larger amounts of people getting sick since Memorial Day in quite a number of states around the country. I don't think we've seen that here in New Hampshire, and I think we've been somewhat blessed with a fairly low count of overall disease and fatalities. But let's keep it that way. Let's continue to be careful and monitor what we're doing. I mean, we've had extensive discussions tonight to try and determine how we can best reach out and help you. But you're the person ultimately responsible for taking care of yourself, and nobody can take that away from you. So take that opportunity to be safe, and don't let anybody fool you into thinking that if you wear a mask or something, you're silly or stupid or whatever. A mask in public areas when you can't stay 6 feet apart to you, and it protects others. Nobody knows who has this virus as it is. Any other comments? Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, congratulations to the senior class of 2020. Going to be, as I said, graduating this Saturday, going to be graduating in waves. Especially to my daughter, Jade, I'm proud of you. Congratulations. And congratulations to the rest of the class. I don't know if anybody got a chance to drive by the high school, but the senior prank was a gem. Because the high school's been vacant, they put a for sale sign out there, which I just thought was one of the more creative hacks that I've seen in a long time. So kudos to whoever was responsible for the prank. I thought that was wonderful. Good job. And want to wish my best to Samantha Sears and the rest of the organizers of the I Hear You gathering tomorrow night from 6:30 to 8. We all, especially for me, we want to be successful. We want to be peaceful, and we hope that the event accomplishes healing that needs in our community. So, best of luck for a successful event tomorrow. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Bill, seconded by
Second.
Peter. Lon?
Woods,
Lon,
yes.
how do you vote? Woods, yes. Tom Koenig, yes. Finley Rothaus?
Yes.
And Peter Albert?
Yes.
Barbara Healy?
Yes.
Bill Boyd?
What
and Nancy Harrington?
Yes.
Moved into that last spot there, just in time there, Nancy. So we are adjourned. Thank you very much. The vote was 7-0-0.
You've all done very well.
Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning. I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.